Hello, everybody, and welcome to the deepest dive on The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom from MinnMax. MinnMax is a place about games, friends, and getting better. Thank you for being here. I'm very happy that you clicked on this video. My name is Ben Hansen, but by God, I'm not alone. I'm joined by the co-director of the Video Game History Foundation, Kelsey Lewin.
That's me. Hi.
Welcome. Does your title feel prestigious to you on the inside, or just from the outside that we all treat you like a queen because you have a cool title like that?
It sounds much cooler than I feel like the actual day-to-day is.
Oh, don't tell us that. Don't tell us that.
I mean, yeah, it does. It makes me feel really cool and important. So
there we go.
Part, right?
Just like the coolest, most important person we know on Earth, I don't know, Leo Vader.
I'm the main one.
That's right, the main guy. Russell Drummy, Jeff Markiafava.
That's me.
Welcome, everybody. This is a huge multi-part game club series covering Tears of the Kingdom. The Deepest Dive is a whole series we have here at MinnMax where we normally take a game, break it up into multiple sections, and give it the best, most thorough discussion possible. The best, most thorough discussion on the internet. We focus in, we cover everything. The catch is, we normally say, stop at this point. Stop at Chapter 6 of Resident Evil 4 Remake. We are tackling Tears of the Kingdom, and this is a format that is tough to overlap with the structure of Tears of the Kingdom. So here's what we're covering in this discussion. Whatever the hell you all want in the community. Really, it's game on. Write in about what you want. Don't spoil the ending or something absurd like that. Primarily, the way we are steering this is we're saying we're playing the opening hours of Tears of the Kingdom, and then we're going to the Northwest. So the adventures you have going to the Northwest, which is where the game subtly nudges you anyway, that's generally what we're covering in this discussion. There won't be big story spoilers in this discussion. There might be some gameplay mechanic spoilers, like, oh, I found this, that type of thing, but just so you all know what you're working with as we jump in here. If you're watching this, first of all, thank you. You can always subscribe to MinnMax's YouTube channel to help support independent games and media. That's the easiest option for you. It's a little click for you, huge benefit for us, so thank you so much. Also, you can unlock the podcast version of all of the Deepest Dives, including this very series on Tears of the Kingdom, all of our past ones, early access to the MinnMax Show podcast, all of our interviews, everything unlocks in this bonus podcast feed. If you go to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, help us by unlocking that bonus podcast feed and have a much more convenient way to enjoy our full, thorough discussion about Tears of the Kingdom here. Also, if you go to Patreon, you can submit a comment for us to read during our discussions. So patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. If you jump in even at that $2 tier, you submit a comment, and that is what we're going to be reading during this show. This is where we're getting the hundreds and hundreds of comments submitted by the community. It's all over there on Patreon. So for next week's discussion, where we're going to continue this whole thing, you can be a part of it by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. We greatly appreciate it. And plus, we're probably going to get some things wrong. Personally, I am pretty checked out of what the rest of the world thinks or is experiencing with Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I haven't checked Twitter, haven't checked Reddit. And so, like, reading these comments on Patreon for the first time, I was like, wait, what is everyone else doing in this game? They're making what? So keep in mind, like, for this first episode, it's kind of about the thrill of discovery, at least for me personally. So don't think that we're going into this first episode with all of us having downloaded everything that's happening on the internet into our brain. We're going in fresh, and we're going to become more and more thorough experts as time goes on. Does that make sense, Leo? Or are you feeling like you fully understand what this game is capable of?
Definitely not. I think you couldn't spoil this game for yourself that hard, even if you tried to.
Right.
It's like you spoil yourself for one of 10 trillion things you could do in this game at a time. And any little thing I learn is just like exciting. Like, oh, I want to try that idea and combine it with this other idea I had.
That's exactly.
And hopefully this Deepest Dive is good for that. Gets people excited and looking at it from different ways than they were before.
Right. Yeah. It's like you can't. It's tough to spoil, like, hey, you're going to be having this type of fun in the future. Well, I look forward to that fun. Like, there's not really a huge penalty so far.
Even any puzzle solution is like, yeah, just one of a bunch of ways you might do it.
Right. Okay, let's set the scene here. I have played this game for about 12 hours. Like, it just came out on Friday. We're recording this on Monday. I'm about at the 12-hour mark, exploring in the Northwest, but haven't done anything too definitive up there because I've been meandering a little bit here and there. But Jeff, how much time have you put into this? How do you ballpark it?
Yeah, probably around 12 hours. And last night I'm like very close to the symbol that was like, hey, check this thing out in the Northwest. And I was like, I didn't quite get to it, but
did you also
like a little?
Did you find that big canyon? And you're like, well, I don't know.
A big canyon?
All right, never mind. Maybe not then. That's where I was like, all right.
There's lots of canyons and chasms and whatnot. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what chasm talk. Don't spoil anything, Jeff. Kelsey, where are you at in this game?
I'm trying to figure out how to check how many hours I've been, because when normally it says on your little playtime thing, but it still just says last played 4 days ago.
Okay.
And it's not showing me the hours, but it's a lot. It's I probably played for 7 or 8 just yesterday, and that was the longest, like, concentrated amount of time I had spent. But yeah, I'm probably more like 18 hours, if I had to guess.
Okay, sweet. Leo, where are you at, man?
Like 12 hours and 10 minutes, probably.
Okay.
I just beat the thing in the Northwest.
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
So are you the only one that has not beaten the thing in the Northwest before we talk about that?
I assume Jeff and I both have not beaten the thing in the Northwest.
No, I don't even know what the thing is.
So are we doing that this episode, or are we saving it? Are we going through that?
Let's see. Let's judge it by community comments. If they get to the thing that is the thing, which I think it is, then we'll talk about it at that point. But there's going to be a lot of loose talk up until then. But maybe it's boring, but I think like setting the scene, I think would help. I'm trying to gauge like where's everybody at. Like Kyle Hilliard is maybe Zelda's biggest fan at MinnMax here. He's going to be joining us for future episodes of The Deepest Dive. And then my ranking is probably Kelsey below that for this discussion at least. Kelsey, you're going to be the number one fan, so you need to represent all of Zelda and all the weight of fan expectations. If you can do that real quick on your shoulders.
Me?
Yep, thank you.
No, I thought I was here because I'm not an enormous Zelda fan.
Well,
I love this version of Zelda, the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom.
Right.
Enormously into that. Like previous Zeldas, I've beat some of them.
Right.
Some of them are pretty good. But I wouldn't call myself like a big super fan.
Yeah. Okay. So for the Breath of the Wild vein, I'm kind of with you where I've loved Zelda in the past, but Breath of the Wild was the one where it's like, oh, okay, this is something else for me. I think Leo, where were you at in Breath of the Wild here?
I liked Breath of the Wild a lot. I think it was maybe a little overstated for its genius when I think it was really just like bold.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It for not waypointing things. It's like it's got the same side content that every open world game has. It just makes you see it from afar instead of like just putting it on your map and having it be a guy you talk to.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't know, but I really love the survival elements of it, and I really respected it a lot. And this one I'm like 10 times as much.
Ooh, that's sweet. And Jeff, I know you were a grower when it comes to Breath of the Wild love. I'm curious about your experience with this thing so far.
Yeah, I would say that I liked Breath of the Wild. Like Leo, I feel like a lot of it got a lot of heaping praise on it. That's like, but this is every open, like, don't you guys play open world games? Mm-hmm. But yes, a lot of my annoyances with the first game have been mitigated by different systems in this one, and I have been really enjoying Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, Kelsey, I mean, since you played the most of it, what do you think of this thing so far? What's grabbing your brain?
Oh, the thing I liked the most about Breath of the Wild, because I get what you guys are saying. I didn't really care about it being open world as much as I cared about like playing with physics and playing with weird, puzzle solutions. And that is exactly what I'm doing in this game. And I love it. I mean, I don't even consider myself to be particularly creative. And like Kyle has said in the main podcast, like that was something of a worry where it's like, am I going to be meant to be constructing like elaborate tanks with dragon wings and stuff? Because like, I'm not doing that. No, I'm just doing really stupid stuff. Like I'm just building giant bridges to things and being like, this is definitely not what you're supposed to do here, but I made a 10 tree long bridge. So now I can do it.
Totally. That was like a valid concern, but now playing the game, I think we're all realizing like it's impossible not to be creative within these tools they're giving you.
And constantly feeling excited to do it. Just like small things like having a shrine where it's like, okay, you have to carry this ball up to this area and drop it off. But then also you can carry this big ball and then you get the treasure chest. And like, I'm not really a puzzle guy in games, but just seeing that level of just simple challenge, I'm immediately excited to tackle this puzzle because it's a quote unquote physicsy puzzle. There's just some magic in this game already where it's just every challenge has me excited. Like, for example, like, oh, there's some place I can't get to on the map. I am excited about that challenge of how to get up there. Whereas other games would be like, okay, what do you want me to do? But I think it's just, I don't know, the looseness of just knowing that like I can fudge this my way, and just that level of power and control over puzzles just feels night and day compared to most games.
100%, because I don't like super puzzle heavy games, and I especially don't like physics puzzles where there's one solution. But that's the great thing about this game is that there's often like 30 solutions, and some of them are really, really, really stupid. And you bet I have found the really stupid one and not the obvious one.
Right. Yeah. And I absolutely love it.
I got myself across a small gap by putting a long platform over a wall. So it was like a teeter-totter. And getting on it and dropping a crate on the far side and launching myself over it.
Oh my God.
I love it.
Yeah, that is like,
oh, good.
Just the first couple times where the game sinks in, you realize like, oh, okay, what's actually possible here? Like we did a stream of this game. If you want to watch me and my old friend play the first couple hours of it, it's like, I like the game fine there. And then it's just having time to sink in with this game, especially when you get to Hyrule, I feel like is where it really started clicking into overdrive for me. And it's such a stupid, simple little thing, but I guess that's kind of the miracle of this game is you look back and just, you're tickled by the smallest things and it just grows from there. Like I was tickled pink by like, oh, I can attach an apple to the middle of this bridge for no reason in the Sky Island area. Like that made me laugh. And then once I got to Hyrule, like, okay, now I'm just gonna spend some time making carts and just going to the top of this hill and riding in the cart and seeing if I can ride the cart down into the enemy camp to like ram them with this. And the first time that I made the cart, had a great time doing that, took it down the hill and was like, boy, that was fun. Well, I guess time to run it back up the hill. And I was like, oh no, I have recall. That's right. This is like removing the worst parts of sledding. Now I can just go right back up to the top of the hill and just try this again and again and again. And just laughing like a stupid kid at these little epiphanies that you have playing this game.
You know what I love about Recall is when you are on a mountain and you kill a monster and their eyeballs rolling down the hill away from you.
Right.
You can recall it to roll back up.
Yeah.
And you just like pluck it out of its path as it's going. Like all that stuff just feels better than you would expect them to possibly be able to make it feel.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm still finding just those stupid little convenient things of, we'll talk about it, but I struggle with the controls for the first couple hours of this game, Now I'm an expert, no doubt about it. But still just having this moment of like, I accidentally threw my weapon off something. And I was like, oh my God. Then like, wait, just recall. And then, all right, have that weapon come right back to you and pluck it out of the sky. And I'm completely good to go. It's like, it's just unbelievable so far.
So
I have accidentally almost thrown my weapon that is the one thing that is still control-wise tripping me up is
Right.
I occasionally mean to do Ultra Hand or because I think it's the same button you use for rotation once you're in the Ultra Hand.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
there's something in my brain that's just like skips a step and then goes to throwing my weapon instead of getting there. So I think that's the only part of the controls that I'm still occasionally messing up. But yeah, it took a little while, but I think it ends up being second nature for the most part.
Yeah. I think with the controls, I normally am not that into, tilt controls, all that stuff. I feel like, okay, with the arrows or even this, like it does kind of help to like fine tune things to lock it in by aiming just a little bit. But I want it, instead of just having tilt when you're in Ultra Hand to like move it around up and down, I want tilt for the rotation. Because I feel like that's the part that maybe I've been the most frustrated with is like, I know exactly the angle I want it, but just kind of doing like a digital like, like I can never get it
like
exactly
45
right.
degrees, and you have to move your body to get it between a 45-degree rotation.
Right. But I wonder, I'm sure they messed around with it and realized that it wasn't that advantageous, but like over tilt controls for anything else in Ultra Hand, I want it just for the rotation of just like hold R and then just let me be like, just right like that. I feel like that's maybe a better implementation of it, but
I could see that being in a patch or something. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe somewhere in some settings somewhere eventually. I think that's another big thing that I've had playing this game is just like, it's a sign of a great game in that it's already just like rewiring how I'm thinking about games in general. And just, I think the building with the Ultra Hand stuff, like when you get to Hyrule specifically and really start messing around with it, I have this feeling of like guilt in my head, something about just like, well, I can build, but I know it's going to deplete resources. And just like that feeling of guilt-free building is so refreshing in this game. Just because, no, this is what the game wants me to do. It wants me just to tinker for a long time with this stuff, and there's not going to be any penalty. There's not like a mana meter that's depleting every time you use Ultra Hand. Like, I feel like I worry about those types of feelings in there. Then you realize, like, no, that's not what this game is. That you got to get that out of your head. That's some old, worse piece of game design stuck in there.
Totally. Are you talking about like Zonai devices and things like that?
Yeah, I guess I haven't even really messed too much with that. But yeah, to some extent, but just that overall feeling of just kind of guilt-free building.
I think that is a great example of what you're talking about, is those little pocket devices. Because in a lot of games, it's really easy to hoard resources and go, well, I could use my strength up potion, or I could just hit them 5 extra times. So why not just save it? But in this, it's like, oh, I have a creative idea for this rocket. There's no question that I'm going to try and make that work. Not only because I don't know when I'll have a creative idea like this again, I may as well jump on this one, but also like it's so intrinsically rewarding and gives you something totally unique.
Yeah.
Rather than just a different way to do something you're doing.
I was surprised and delighted by how many resources those little gacha machines give you when you put stuff into them.
Yeah.
I was really expecting, well, first of all, it was like, put 2 together, or, put as many as you want in there. And I thought it was going to be like cooking, where it's like, you fuse these 2 and you might get like 1 thing back. And so, I put like 3 things in there and got, 9, 10 things back. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is so much better than I thought. I'm just going to I haven't been to a gacha machine in probably like 6 or 7 hours of playing. And I'm nowhere near running out of just from the last time I dumped everything into them.
It is just also an S tier collectible, like rolling up on one that has 3 question marks and you don't know what it's going to be. Like, that is so exciting because there are so many weird little toys that just keep coming.
How do you think they dole those out? Because I don't think I've seen a rocket yet.
I think it's regional. I believe if you look on the map after you've gone to one, you can see what each gacha machine could give you.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I just have to go find more gacha machines. Are they only in the Sky Islands?
That's the only place I've found them so far. So it's interesting, the resource drain going from like opposite regions. Even in here, when we're going to the cold weather region, it's like we need a lot of peppers to prepare. When you go to the sky region, you need some of your like ground resources to hang up there and vice versa.
Right. Jeff, where do you want to start, man? Should we start at the beginning? Should we start with gameplay? We got 1,000 community questions and comments.
I guess let's start with the beginning.
What a gentleman. Very courteous of you. All right, we got Brandon G, who writes in over on Patreon that say, opening with a black screen and title instead of a menu felt like Nintendo embracing this as a monumental blockbuster within the game itself. This was unexpected, impactful, and made the game feel even more special. That, combined with Link diving from the sky, puts this among the best intros to a Nintendo game ever. And then Sonny Johnson writes in with a similar thought, saying, it's the best opening to any Zelda game. The context provided, the music that grows more eerie the deeper you descend, all culminating in finding a mummified Ganondorf with that raspy voice, which sounds amazing in Japanese, by the way. If this is what a Zelda movie would be like, sign me up. Brandon's note.
Zelda movie would be like the Mario movie, but we can go on.
It is a super classy opening of just having like the text. I love like it conveys the confidence of what this game is. Like they know that even though it's a game that's colorful and bright, and I think kids will like it, and it'll make them smarter and better people overall, obviously. Like just having that super classy opening of just that text is notable.
With like the tiniest font that they could do too. I was playing, in handheld, and it was like the Legend of what? It's
go
seriously like overly confident of like, we know what we've created here. Just bump it down. Just bump it down. Even we don't need to brag about. People are going to be bragging for us for the next 100 hours as they play this.
That's right. Yeah, it'll sell itself.
Smallest, plainest font. We're done here. Let's go.
Apollo Adama writes in to say, is anyone else curious as to why there's no title/main menu soundtrack? This was also true with Breath of the Wild. It was honestly one of my biggest questions I had going into Tears of the Kingdom is, will it have a main theme? But the answer is no, it doesn't, for the main menu at least. I don't know why it sticks out to me so much. Nintendo has iconic, and Zelda has iconic music, so why wouldn't they put it on the title screen?
What's funny is I will probably not see the title screen again for
I know.
like 100 hours. Like, I don't know at what point I am switching from this game to playing another game, but I think that was true for Breath of the Wild too. Like, I did not notice that, genuinely.
Totally agreed. Yeah. You just pick it up and it's already on. You're already playing it.
You're good to go. Yeah. Yeah. What'd y'all think of the opening and kind of how, I guess, structured it is? Is that the takeaway?
I enjoyed it a lot. Zelda excitedly seeing the markings on the walls and breaking down what's going on and what the setup essentially. The story in general I've been more interested in than I think I have in a Zelda game.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like it has a lot of personality.
Just this is the type of ancient civilization story that clicks with you, or what do you think it is that's grabbing you in particular?
It's been brief. It's
Okay.
been concise. And there's been characters who have feelings about it, you know?
Okay. What more do you want? Yeah.
I really like Zelda's characterization throughout that whole sequence. It was very like, she's clearly a huge nerd for this stuff. And I
Right.
think that's really, like, that's not a side that we see of, a normally pretty stoic character there. So I thought that was fun.
Yeah. She gets to be a bit of an expert in this area. Yeah, it is nice.
It was weird to me that she was like, "Oh, it's under Hyrule Castle that no one has ever gone under there." And I was thinking, like, haven't I gone under Hyrule Castle like 5 times in previous games? I feel like every part has some kind of secret passage that goes underneath the castle, but
But maybe that's like not deep into the chasm.
yeah, maybe that's just like
depths.
sewer level, but they're
This is night and day
even
different.
more subterranean.
Yeah. Alex the Snood writes in and says, when the game opened with Link following Zelda, she slowly walked along a set path. I did a double take. Is this The Last of Us? Then it turns out Alex was playing The Last of Us. Was that the most AAA moment in the franchise's history? Oh, that's a weird kind of gross way of phrasing it. But they say, I can't ever recall ever waiting for an NPC to catch up to me in a Legend of Zelda game. I bet there's some like walk and talk in the beginning of Skyward Sword. I'm trying to remember. That whole section is pretty guided, but yeah, I don't know. It definitely, it stood out here too. Cassandra says, am I the only, or at the opening, I was so immersed, I walked the same pace with Zelda the entire way through. All right, hey, we're not going to judge.
Right
You
on.
play your way. Then they get to the depths and, actually, Jews10 writes in, they say, hooray! Tears of the Kingdom Deepest Dive. Yes, we're here, we're doing it. This is why I decided to join as a patron for MinnMax. Thank you so much. When Zelda and Link first see Ganondorf's body, Zelda tells Link they must be extremely careful. About 30 seconds later, she proceeds to pick up with her bare hands a jewel that just fell off a glowing severed hand attached to a decayed mummy. This mummy has been giving off an ominous aura that has been radiating throughout the caves. That's not very careful, Zelda. Also, where did that large ox thing go from the 2019 reveal trailer? Do y'all remember this? Like in that first reveal trailer, there was like a bull that was going down there with them that I guess didn't make the cut.
Interesting.
Unless they save it for later. But I don't know. Maybe they chose like, you know what? The ox or the bull thing, it probably would have fallen down the abyss as well. And so maybe we don't want to open with full animal cruelty.
Maybe this game's playing with time. Maybe you have to send the bull back to save Zelda.
Oh, that's smart. That's smart.
Bull recall.
Yep. Spencer Bertine writes in and says, when Link attempts to protect Zelda from the Ganondorf goop and the Master Sword is shattered, the very tip of the blade grazing across dehydrated Ganondorf's cheek to make the slightest cut was mwah, chef's kiss. 10 out of 10 video game just from that. That got me. Like the intro is certainly interesting, but like that little animation of that chunk of the Master Sword just grazing his cheek. It's like, I'm sure it's just setting up that idea of the Master Sword is effective against him. It's not just completely useless despite it shattering, but also just cinematically, it just was so cool.
Yeah, great detail.
It like reminded me of like the Mega Man. This is a weird throwback, but the Mega Man reveal for Smash Brothers Wii U. If you remember that cinematic trailer, he comes up in the night and then he like launches the metal blades and stuff and it's like going over the Nintendo characters' faces. It reminded me of that weird, just like slow motion, like focusing on just that tiny detail on his face. I thought I thought he sounded so cool. I was very into Ganondorf from this entire opening. And when he's like Link and Zelda's like, how do you know our names? What is happening? Even that was much more compelling than I thought it was going to be.
Everything about his design was super cool and super creepy. The pose that he was in was like, it was like, whoa, this is some freaky stuff. And obviously it's Ganon. I don't know how they can't figure that out, but that's okay.
Well, because they've never encountered Ganondorf before. So it'd have to be a big legend that would come through. Jeff, don't have that attitude. Mr. Hipshot writes in and says, let it be known that I like Zelda's voice. I'd say she's on the same level as everyone else in the game. Plus, it's nice that between this game and Breath of the Wild, she actually has a well-developed personality. I enjoy hearing her get excited about her research. She's a big dork for everybody, or she's a big dork, guys, I guess is what they say. Link and I both don't know what she's talking about, but it's fine. Are people online tearing Zelda a new one for the voice acting? Is this a big theme that you're seeing?
This is the first I've heard of it.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I'm not the biggest fan of their performance. And then I had some comments.
So you're wondering if it's okay to go in.
I'm wondering if it's safe territory. No, but I was like talking about it during the opening stream, and there were a couple comments that made it seem like, go easy on her, she's getting death threats. And I was like, wait, what? I don't know. It's like a weird Ada from Resident Evil 4 situation, I guess. I'm like, oh, didn't notice it too much. But this one, I was confused about that tone of her kind of being scared, but also excited in the beginning. It's just kind of like excited overall energy, and I had a tough time tracking it, but we don't need to lay into it. Tanner H is not a fan of the voice acting. Sean Mills writes in and says, I love this intro to the game, but if I can nitpick it, it really stands out that Link is a silent protagonist for this opening section. I think Zelda's dialogue wouldn't sound so stilted if she was having an actual conversation with you instead of just talking at you, and I would have loved to hear Link give some sort of verbal reaction to all the crazy stuff happening with the mummy. If Isaac Clarke is allowed to talk now, it's time for Link to learn how to use his words.
I know it's going to be weird when they eventually do that, but that was a section that stood out to me as I feel like I went through most of the Breath of the Wild without really noticing a jarring amount of he's a silent protagonist and it's weird in this context. But when it's just him and one person and she's having an entire conversation with no one, essentially, that is when you start to notice it. So I don't know. I don't think there's a winning move here because it's going to sound weird when he has a voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it this whole opening, it felt like, man, if I was really into Zelda lore, I would be screaming at the TV, ask more questions. What is happening? Because it is bizarre just to kick it off with, here's some wild stuff happening, and now go explore and have fun. And just to have Link be completely silent throughout all of that and kind of almost, for my playthrough, at least peacefully going about his adventure pretty quickly after all this chaotic stuff happening. It's I don't know what it would be. If he had a voice, it would just be another cutscene of him going, what's happening? Where's Zelda? It's I guess I don't really need that. I don't think he could.
Give him a whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, it's there's nothing he could specifically say, but I just felt like the greatest disconnect, I guess, is in that section of just I feel like this character should be screaming right now, and instead it's just blink, blink, just picking up pretty stuff around him, and it's a little weird.
That's valid. I don't think it's always the right choice for a silent protagonist, but in this case, it's I don't think of Link as anyone. It's just me running around doing this stuff, so
right.
I wouldn't want him to ever say anything.
Right. Villis, Tokyo Game Life, they wrote in, they say, I wrote into the MinnMax show asking, will Link's first skydive be one of the greatest video game moments ever? This was a while back. And the answer was yes. Yes, it was. So it's Tokyo Game Life.
My bad.
Leo, you say nay?
It's all right. I feel like in Deepest Dive comments, we're always talking about, and now here's me being always, we're always talking about things being the best of all time. It comes up in every Deepest Dive, every comment, I feel like.
Yeah, because we only talk about the best of the best. It's
the best.
People were asking on Twitch, asking about most common comment. If you can count it for this batch, it was basically people explaining what they did in the game and then saying 10 out of 10. So I think the most common comment, strangely, would be 10 out of 10 for this section. Right. I love that, the big splash reveal of the title screen and the first big dive. I was, again, you can't get bogged down in this type of stuff, but I was like, what does Link think is happening here? He just is eager to jump off this cliff cliff immediately when seeing it because he's confident there's a little cool pool of water down there. I don't know, man.
All of the big dives and stuff like that it could have been a crazy, incredible moment if we didn't already know it was coming.
Right.
Like, not to say it was bad or anything. Like, it was still really, really cool. But like, also, I knew I was in the sky. I knew I would be diving down to the giant world below. Like, that's a very well communicated thing both before the game came out and even like as you're playing it. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go back down to the ground pretty soon. That'll be a moment.
You're right. We all experienced it, I guess, with that first trailer that revealed it, and that was like our big wow moment, I guess, with that feeling.
Right. Not that it's not fun, of course, but I was wondering if I need to go back to Just Cause 4 and see if we gave that its fair due, because it's
what
interesting. Not only the skydiving, but like putting the little specific tools that on things that make them do specific things. Your little jet boosters and stuff. That was like a really. I was
just talking about that with my partner the other day.
With Just Cause 4?
It really is a similar like giving you toys in the sandbox expressly.
Weird.
Rather than the other Just Cause games.
What do you do?
I do think that this game does it in a way that resonates better, both with myself and with a lot of other people. But like, there were some things where, where people are strapping rockets to Koroks and stuff where I'm like, this feels very Just Cause, not Zelda.
Which I guess is code for just a good game. Yeah. The opening dive I really liked, but I think what hit me more was like leaving the kind of tutorial Sky Island area and like being on the wing for the first time. And like that I felt like was a more impactful moment of just kind of seeing the full expanse of the world. The skydiving down to the Sky Island was cool, but then that moment of like, oh no, you can actually steer this thing a little bit and the world's your oyster, go. Like that had me more excited, I think, than that first dive, but no doubt it was cool.
I really like the way diving has been working and the like wing glider Zonai thing. The way you still feel really fragile and real small. A lot of times in like GTA, once you fly across the map in a 747, the map just will feel smaller to you. But this game, it still feels like you, and it still feels like you are occupying the same physical space, if that makes sense. Like getting really cold when you're up above the clouds and things like that.
Right. Yeah, it's like one of the small moments I had of like, really, game? Are you really going to limit me here? Was I didn't expect that the wings would like peter out and they like blink green, and I thought it would just be good for as long as you wanted to go. That feels more like the Zelda game's design philosophy. So the first time it was like timing me on how long I could be in that wing. It was like, it feels like the rare no from the Zelda team these days, just to say like, don't go too far though. It's like, what? That's the point, I thought.
Yeah, it's the weird points where they decide to balance it versus the most of the time they're gleefully unbalancing it.
Right.
I feel like we should have a section of this Deepest Dive where we talk about completely broken strategies we've seen. If you're the type of player who couldn't help but do the most easy broken strategy, I don't want to put it in your mind, Okay. I want to put separate spoiler walls up for that.
Okay, yeah, maybe that can come up later. I get it. But what do you think the idea was? It's like, well, we have the stamina for the glider, and that works pretty well to keep you in a certain range from going too far, and so we need something to gate you for the wing. Otherwise, you can just completely bypass everything. Because if you just take the wing from a Sky Island, you could, in theory, break the game.
It's the same logic as like the fan not having unlimited. Like it's all the Zonai devices. I feel like
right.
You couldn't just be like, well, but this one in particular, we're not going to have a battery limit on when all of them have a battery limit, right?
Yeah.
But the wing being able to stay in the air by itself without using any battery, I feel like it does need its own balancing. I think from what I've seen of the later game tools, and even probably with some of the stuff we have now, I bet you could make a Watch Dogs Legion style hover thing with the wing and just go from Sky Island to Sky Island and collect everything that they have there. And clearly the Sky Islands are built to have a lot of puzzles for how do you get here to here? How do you get this thing to this other Sky Island?
Right. God, I do love, like, I think first time just sending a wing off that little railway and watching it go. I love just seeing like, oh, it's paper airplane physics. It's just like that swoop. It's like those little things. It's like, it's obviously it should be that, but it's just somehow so satisfying to see in a game like this. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, and then when I did the same thing and I watched it and I was like, okay, I see how this works now. And then standing on it and and I figured it would just fly exactly where I want it, exactly
Right.
back to the time temple or whatever. And then I was realizing like, oh, it's going way too far. And I just kind of stepped to the right a little and the whole thing tilted. And it's like, oh my God. It's very satisfying. And then I tried to get it to dip. And of course I walked right off the nose of it and fell down. But I landed in a pool. So everything was fine. But it is a very satisfying, like it's so easy for games and especially physics-based games to just be like, okay, well you're on a thing now, so we're just gonna like turn the main physics off and you're just gonna control the thing now. And the fact that it is very dangerous to try and use those things, as soon as I started trying to fly that, I was like, oh, my wife is gonna hate this because she like fear of heights gets to her even in video games, and it was like, oh, she's as soon as that starts tipping, she's not gonna like it. But that it makes me want to fly it, it makes me want to get on and screw around with that thing. So
it does. I built a glider, a wing with a rocket on the front and a fan on the back with the intent to go extra far. And I hit the body of it, so both activated at once. We rocketed off, and then I realized that the fan was on backwards. So as the rocket petered out, the wing started like dipping, and I turned and had to use Ultra Hand to grab the fan and try and spin it around and like manipulate this thing while I was on it. It felt like Captain Phillips or something. Just like super high stakes plane moment. It was really fun.
Wait, you mean Sully Sullenberger, not Captain Phillips? Tom Hanks was the boat guy, and then Sully Sullenberger was the air guy. You got to get your Tom Hanks right, man.
Both deadly situations.
And then Woody was the one in the sky on the rocket. Just don't get it confused.
Got it. You do not want to hear about my Captain Phillips moment.
Tim O'Keefe writes in and says, did anyone else find the wing a bit confusing at first? I spent a decent amount of time attaching fans to it, putting it right at the edge of a cliff, only to realize later you simply place it over the divot on the ramp and it'll glide down gently for you to jump on. I feel like it could have been explained a little bit better, but that's just a minor complaint for what has been a great game so far.
Launching wings has been tough, but I did one where I put it on a cart, on the little four-wheeled Zonai cart, and it was a lot more versatile that way, of like getting a running start.
Oh, I like that.
I think you can put wheels on the bottom of, like, you have to use airplane physics, which is like, again, I mean, everything in this game is so physics based, and you just sort of have to like eventually understand the rules, because they're close to how things work in, I mean, obviously it's, it's a video game, it's not 1-to-1, but like, an airplane needs wheels to take off and a runway. Like that's how it works in the real world. So like these, you can't just put on the ground and like put a fan on. You have to like give it some momentum and then it can take off. So I think that's cool once I learned that. But yeah, I struggled with it at first too.
I haven't even thought of that yet, of like taking off from the wing on the bottom. I'm still trying to understand a lot of the parameters of like, what am I doing here? Like, basically accidentally once I like attached a wing to an arrow that I shot, and I was like, wait, it's so weird that you can even do that with those parts. Like, is there a big benefit? Has anybody found, like, I haven't found a rocket yet, but you can put like a rocket on an arrow?
I had a construct shoot that at me, and it was terrifying.
Oh, that's sweet.
Putting stuff on arrows is huge, though. I put stuff on nearly every arrow I fire. The wing, like you're talking about, it'll say in the description sometimes if it has extra characteristics, and that one, it'll go further if it has a wing attached to it.
Okay.
And that comes in handy for long range shooting, for sure.
Okay, that makes sense. Steve Aleutian writes in and says, the combat feels a lot more enjoyable with the addition of fusing arrows. My first tussle with a giant stone talus felt so much more fluid and by extension exciting than in Breath of the Wild. A lot has been made of fusing melee weapons, and I get why the way in which archery combat has changed has made a huge difference to combat encounters for me early on. It's nice not to have to spend an hour farming rupees to pay an extortionate amount of money for a handful of fire arrows. Yeah, I haven't been fusing as much as I probably should on the arrows. There's a lot of stuff where it's just like, I don't really know how this will impact things if I slap this on there. For me, it's just like, I keep my arrows, I use like the fire flower every once in a while, and then if I'm in danger, it's like, just put a bomb on the arrow and let it fly. And that's like, that's kind of my default 3.
The choo-choo jelly is the one that I think comes in the most handy on the arrows for me, because they're fairly easy to find. The little choo-choos to kill them and harvest that. And then you have things like like putting the ice ones on an arrow is like just killer in a large encounter, because it's like, oh, you have a giant thing coming at you? Okay, just freeze it real quick. And then you have a minute to breathe and figure out your strategy.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's the fuse stuff, especially with the arrows, I think has real like boy in his blob kind of feel to it, of just like, I have all these things that I'm just gonna have to sit and experiment with them and, sacrifice, some of the consumables just to figure out what each one does. And that's a fun mechanism, like a discovery mechanism, that's kind of built outside of normal design of like, okay, now you have to discover this. We're going to tell you what to do. It's like, no, I just want to sit down with all my toys and figure out what's happening with these.
Right.
These
and
things.
you'll run into enemies and stuff too that will give you like inspiration. Like I hadn't been attaching any like food to things because that sounds silly, but there was an enemy I fought that had I forget which mushroom it was, but had a mushroom on the top of a spear, and it like sends you flying. It's like a bouncy thing that just sends you flying. And I was like, oh, a mushroom on a stick does something cool. Okay.
Oh, interesting. And like, yeah, I think I saw from just previews that you can use meat as a way to distract things. You put like a meat on an arrow, I think it'll like distract enemies away. But I kind of feel that same way where it's like, it's probably the wrong mentality to have for this type of game. But I feel like for attaching stuff to my arrows, it's like, 10% of the stuff in my inventory is going to be effective. And the rest is just going to be stupid visual gag of, wouldn't it be funny if I put a fish on an arrow? But there probably is a lot more secret uses in here than I could ever imagine.
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of the secret uses, but I do use just like the little shards you get from every enemy, the bits of their horns or whatever. I use those on my arrows all the time to just do extra damage.
Just like, what does the choo-choo jelly do, by the way, Kelsey?
So the different ones have different elements. So the fire ones will, set it on fire. The ice ones will freeze you. I think the regular ones are like water damage, although I don't really know. Like I haven't fought anything where water damage is like particularly useful yet.
Right.
But I think that's what those ones do. But yeah, it's just nice elemental stuff. And
okay.
Other than fire, elemental stuff, because you have the fire zonai device that the flame emitter that you can attach to things. But other than that, I feel like the elemental stuff is kind of rare in this game, so it's a good way to be able to use that in a useful combat way. Like, if you attach like a sapphire to a sword or something, it becomes an ice sword, or a ruby becomes a fire sword. But like those are really rare. Those are really hard to find. So It's a nice way to like get some of that in your combat without having to sacrifice a very rare type of material.
Right.
I'm becoming a little bit of a hoarder, right? And I feel like that's probably true of most people.
I feel like there's no shame in this game for doing that, just spending so much time hoarding. Like one of my favorite moments was, I think it was a little bit to the west, and I found just basically like an apple orchard by a shrine. I don't know if anybody else has found this, where it's just like huge, just so many apple trees. And there was that one quest from the person kind of in your house area, the underground base area, where he's like, hey, I could really use some apples for cooking. And I happened to be out of apples at the time. It's like, well, I'm just going to stock up and help this guy out. And I spent like 40 minutes just collecting every apple in that orchard and then chopping down every tree.
One?
What's that?
Doesn't he only want one?
Well, he might have wanted like 208. I wasn't sure. So I just wanted to be safe just in case. But then I also just like chopped down every tree and collected all the wood. And then just had this one of like, God, that was so fun. I love that. And then like looked at what I'd done. It was like World War I barren landscape. Like, oh my God, Zelda, I've ruined you.
This reminds me of like when they were talking about Breath of the Wild and talking about, the development of it, how when they had Miyamoto playing the prototype, he was like just climbing trees for like 5 hours. And they were like, don't you want to do anything else, Mr. Miyamoto? And he's like, no, I'm having a great time. So just chopping trees and harvesting apples. If that's this game for you, that's great.
I think it might be.
That is great. Is throwing materials new? Just throwing them by hand? Were you able to do that in Breath of the Wild? I don't remember doing it.
I don't remember having the option of like near or far for like the distance that you're throwing things.
But you also can go to throw your weapon and press the materials thing, and you switch to any material and you can just throw it directly with your hand.
Oh, so you can just chuck apples?
You can
I
chuck
learned
apples.
that from a shrine. I did not know that until there was a shrine that made me do that. And I was like,
It's weird how missable some of those tutorial shrines are. But yeah, I love like being able to make fire that fast. I love chopping down a tree and just setting a bush on fire that all these apples are in and baking all the apples at once.
Ooh.
It's so fast and easy and satisfying in this one.
God, it's sorry for being so obvious, but God bless them for making such a weird game. This game is really strange in all the best ways. Like, they didn't need to swing this hard. And the fact that, you know, in the last game, they talked so much about multiplicative gameplay. And it's like, okay, I got it. And obviously Breath of the Wild masterpiece, no doubt about that. But I feel like that phrase, even though they haven't really done enough interviews to hit that point home again for Tears of the Kingdom's launch, I feel like that phrase is just tenfold as important this time. Of like, every item I get, it is just, everything feels exponential in a way that I didn't even feel in Breath of the Wild, despite being amazed by the possibility space there, you know?
The Breath of the Wild, again, I am very, very positive on. I still feel like the abilities were almost a little random. You could definitely do cool stuff with them, but these abilities sounded random at first, but in play feel so cohesive and interesting, and it feels like you really have game dev tools in your hands. It feels like you're really manipulating this in a weirdly grounded way for doing stuff that, you know, you're typically doing with a mouse before you've hit build.
Right.
I think I read that the Ascend ability was a debug tool, that they were like, oh, this rules actually, and they just put it in the game.
That's so interesting.
Oh, weird. Yeah, I know on the Nintendo site, they said that, I think, was it an interview? They said that Ascend was the last one they added to the game.
I don't know.
It's so good.
It's so good and so fun, and I don't know how you design a game where it doesn't break it completely.
Yeah, right? I mean, that is maybe my biggest, like, yes, all the attaching stuff and it not breaking is a very huge feat. But yeah, I definitely feel like the Ascend thing is like the thing I am constantly surprised is not broken. Like, the most quote unquote broken thing I have ever done is used Ascend, and there's like birds standing on something that like normally fly away when you're there, and they don't fly away until you like get up out of the hole. Like, that's the most broken thing about it, is like the birds don't move yet. Like, it's incredible.
I know that, you know, part of the charm of this game is the jank, an acceptable level of jank everywhere when you're building all this stuff. But like, it's worth noting again, and Breath of the Wild was the same way. Like, if any other company tried to make a game like this, even if it was early access for 6 years, I still feel like it would be the most broken thing when it came out. Like, in an era when so many AAA games are just a shattered mess technically, that they can release something like this that just has so many possibilities for everything, and it's still like, it's holding together. It's pretty solid. It's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Elliot S. writes in and says, I've spent so much time looking for solutions to puzzles only to forget about Ascend. That is such a helpful tool, but man, I forget about it all the time.
I was watching my friend play, which was an awesome experience. Watching someone do stuff I'd already done and like seeing how they do it differently.
Yeah.
And there's one shrine where a side chest is only accessible by Ascend, and there seemed to be no other way to solve it. And I watched him run around in circles for 20 minutes and just took all the restraint to not tell him about the ability he's forgetting about.
Yeah.
I think the only reason I haven't forgotten about Ascend is because I keep hearing from everybody, like all of my peers and stuff, just like, I keep forgetting about Ascend. And It's like, it's the fact that everyone else is talking so much about how they forget about it is the only thing that's making me remember to use it.
I'm going to start setting a timer on my phone that goes off every 6 minutes to just say, remember to use Ascend. Because I've had a situation too of like, you know, just exploring caves. And it'd be like, okay, now I got to go all the way back. And it's like, wait a minute. No, I don't. I can just shoot out of here. And then it's also the advantage of now it's just an easy way to get higher on this mountain that I was trying to climb anyway. So it's just a win-win-win. It's just a smart little detail of like having your base. I guess it ties into the overall theme of caves for the game, but like having that base that you start out in being kind of the underground area. And it's like, oh, if you want to get out of there, just use Ascent. You don't have to climb back to the ladder every time, just whatever. You get out of bed in the morning, just zip, straight up and you're back on your adventure.
I like that the guy down there too is like, man, if only we had powers to fly up through the roof instead of using this ladder, that would be great. Thanks for the reminder. I probably would have used the ladder like a sucker if you hadn't mentioned it.
I feel like the NPCs, I feel like they're kind of, at least in the starting area, first couple hours, I feel like they're kind of in big buckets of like, all right, this 20% of NPCs, you're here to remind players about this. This 20%, you're here to remind players to move to the northwest. Everyone kind of has their buckets, and I feel like a lot of the dialogue is just like, by the way, remember this right now, and it's going to be one of these 5 things. And I'm hoping that the NPC dialogue gets a little more interesting and varied as you move on out. But I'm sure it will once you get out of the tutorial town, at least. Just because, I mean, so many people on the way up to the castle was just like, make sure to talk to Haas up there. He's follow this path. Like, yeah, I got that. The last guy said that just in a slightly different way. I'm hip.
So does the game, I was not paying attention to this because I just knew that for the deepest dive, we were going to be going northwest. Does the game actually push you that way? And I'm only asking this because I'm watching other people I know play, and neither of them went to the northwest.
They're pretty
and I don't know
punk rock.
if that's like because the game pushed them that way or didn't push them that. Like, I have no idea, and I was just not paying attention at all.
It does. It nudges you. Like when they talk about the map, when Purah, I think, is showing off the map, it's like, all right, here, and I forget exactly what the wording. It's something like, we recommend you start here. It's a soft version of that, I think. And then it seems like as they're going around the towns and the different regions, it seems like there's kind of a natural order of things. And yeah, there's some subtle nudging to the northwest, I guess. But I'm trying to think, like, if it wasn't for the deepest dive, I probably would go that way anyway, I think. I probably would have. Because it's also, they start talking a lot early on about like, oh, it's staying cold, need some warm clothes, gotta heat yourself up somehow. So I feel like they're trying to brace you for just that element first as well. So that also is kind of nudging you that direction. And I think also like the Gazette, like the newspaper stuff, they're like, that also pushes you to the northwest a little bit to learn more about the whole newspaper theme. So I think it's there, but did you guys feel nudged?
In small ways.
In small ways.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned it, but it is the type of game where it's like, if I took my kid to the playground and I said, hey, go play with that swing in the northwest, you know, he's just going to run off and like play with whatever is there. You put 4 spots on a person's map. I had to rewatch like your intro video for the deepest dive like 3 times to be like, wait, which way was I supposed to be?
Oh, really?
Which way did he say we were supposed to be going? So I can see how people, like, no matter how many times NPCs tell you, hey, you might want to check out the northwest, it's like, that is right out of my mind as soon as I... And like, even when I picked it on the map, it's like, as soon as I come out of the map, it's like, ooh, I think that's a shrine.
Yeah.
Ooh, what just fell over there? It's like kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
There's no greater nudge than, oh, that looks cool that way.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. I know Breath of the Wild was, you know, a piece of master, as they say, about this as well. But like, I've just been struck about just that idea of, you see something like, okay, there's a shrine halfway up a mountain over here. Well, I got to get to that. And it is just unbelievable how just on that journey, you have the moment of like, oh, that's further away than I realized. But then along that way, it's just this perfect thing of like, we're also going to have 3 things just kind of in your view enough that's going to derail you. You'll go that way, and then it's just a branch of a tree. You'll head towards that thing. But then there's going to be 3 things off that little path that'll derail you a little bit more. So it's just like this pattern from hell of trying to get anywhere, but in a fun way, where it's just like, you will pick a direction, pick an object, go there. You will find 9 discoveries along the way. It's unbelievable.
I keep running out of pins. I don't know if or the little markers. Like,
right.
Just any shrine I see, I'm like, yeah, but that looks far. I'll do that later. And then the game's like, well, you're out of markers, so you gotta remove one of these. Did
Breath of the Wild have that same text of like discovery every time you find like a cave or something? I didn't remember it. And it's like, it's one of those things of like, I don't need that. I like the sense of discovery on my own. You don't need to have the word discovery exclamation point on the screen every time I find something kind of cool, but that's all right. Let's see.
Well, I guess I like that things are named. Like, okay, this is an area that I should like actually look into, because this isn't just a like random cave of complete nothing. There's probably like something in here if it is a named cave.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep, totally. Levandusky writes in, before we forget about Ascend here, saying, I was genuinely confused when Kyle seemed to be highlighting Ascend as a key mechanic during his review on the show last week, but after playing with it, I can see why he felt like it was integral. When playing Ocarina of Time as a kid, I would step away from the game and see structures in real life and make me think, I could totally hookshot onto that ledge. It's crazy that 25 years later, I'm still looking at ceilings and cliffs in real life and thinking, I get a pretty cool view if I had Ascend. And then Villain Max says, while I enjoy Ascend for its puzzle-solving ability, rapid use of it for platforming feels bad. It's like a series of loading screens.
Yeah, and that comes up in the in this northwest region on your way to. Can I say it? Can I say what the thing is?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so the Wind Temple is up there.
Right. Okay.
And the journey to the Wind Temple was. It's not that it wasn't fun. It was just excruciating. Like, it was so long. And it was essentially just using Ascend a lot in a series of like I guess you'd call it platforming, kind of, in that you are moving from platform to platform, but like with gliding and gusts of wind and Ascend. And I swear, just getting to the Wind Temple took me almost 2 hours. Like, it was just. That's probably an exaggeration, but it felt like it was genuinely like, because first of all, I thought that was like the event we were supposed to complete.
I think it kind of was, Kelsey, but I just didn't go near it in time.
But yeah, I mean, I was like, okay, I need to stop exploring and like buckle down and do this. And it definitely felt like buckling down and doing it and like foregoing some of the exploration stuff to just use Ascend after glide after Ascend. Like, it was just it was a long way up to that Wind Temple.
I actually enjoyed the journey to the Wind Temple. I think there were enough places. I didn't feel like I was ascending back to back to back. I felt like there were places where I could be like making decisions where I go, oh, this will let me skip that platform or whatever. It wasn't kind of taking the one designated path. And you have Toolin helping you, who can blow this gust of wind directly horizontally once in a while to let you traverse like way further linearly at certain points.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting tool to play with.
Now that I've kind of mastered that, I like that tool. I think it's fun. I use it a lot in like gliding now, but I don't know. You didn't think that was just like
it
so
was long.
Far of a journey?
It was a lot longer than it needed to be, for sure. But there were a couple little interesting moments and discoveries in there that kept me going. There's one point where I couldn't ascend, and I said, I want to ascend. I love ascending. And I realized, like, oh, I can like stack things to get me a little bit higher in the air, and then I can ascend.
Yeah,
now I'm ascending, and I'm loving it.
I did that too. I think it was during that sequence, but yeah, where you're like, that's just too high up. The Ascend won't work, and oh, but I've got these boxes here. I guess I can make it work after all. And that stuff is fun.
That is a thing that totally lands for me in it being a former debug tool, which is so funny. But the way they make that feel like an actual in-game thing where you're swimming through the mountain dimension to get to the top of it or whatever. I feel like that adds a lot of fun to it for me.
Yeah, Jared N. running about that saying, I love that they animated Link swimming through the solid material he ascends through. Just one of those little details that make the game feel so much more alive and the world so real. Yeah, I still love
so inspired, so weird.
Yeah, just that animation of him like popping up out of the ground like a little groundhog is so cute too. And especially
then deciding like, maybe I'll just go back down.
Yep,
I don't like it up here.
Exactly.
After all.
Exactly. All right, going back in time to the Sky Islands kind of opening area here. Rob from Bmore, I assume Baltimore. Is that what cool people call Baltimore? Mm-hmm. Okay. Rob from Cool Guy Baltimore says, I don't believe a video game has ever made me feel the way I did when Link first jumps off the cliff after his first steps into the light. Maybe it was just the level to which I had the headphones cranked, but when that score swells and the title screen comes on, chills rushing through my body, and I immediately couldn't wait to uncover everything this game has to offer. 20 hours in, and that feeling has not waned one bit. Rob, Leo says play Just Cause 4, you fake ass gamer, which I think is inappropriate, but sure.
I wanted to say I didn't mean to dismiss that so hard earlier. It is a cool moment.
Hey everybody, this is Ben Hansen from the future jumping in to say, hey, if you're enjoying this YouTube video, thank you. You can always subscribe to MinnMax's YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate it. Or again, this entire conversation, all of our other discussions are available in a bonus podcast feed, patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. It goes right in your favorite podcast app. It's a great and convenient way to go. It's a piece of cake, and it's kind of the whole thing that we have going here. We agree to make way too long conversations about specific games for the deepest dive, and hopefully that model can be supported moving forward by you getting the convenience of having it in your favorite podcast app. So patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. It's all we ask. All right, thanks so much. Back to the conversation. Villas says, come on, everybody. Sky Islands? Just call them Skylands. We're killing our word/character count for the deepest dive comments. No one cares about Skylanders anymore. Call them Skylands. Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Message learned. So if anybody dares call them Sky Islands on this podcast, so help me God. Scott Astro says, the opening Sky Island Skyland area is a Nintendo game design masterclass. This is World 1-1 for a new generation. It gives you all the tools you need, teaches you how to use them, lets you fail with little consequences. The designers even anticipate common ways you'll mess up and build around that to make sure success is attainable without making it feel like you're having your hand held. It's pure brilliance for that opening area.
I really liked that there was no waypoints guiding you. And it didn't even feel like you were on a tight little road or anything. When I saw the first enemy, I was like, am I supposed to be doing this right now?
Right.
Which is definitely putting you in the right mindset for the rest of the game.
Yep, absolutely. And just like helping you out a little bit, like, like we talked about with the wing launchers, having those paths, just like helping out by having that one icicle over the left, just like to stop that one wing spot in its spot, so then you can hit it and then like choose when you want to go. Just like all those little nudges are like, we know where you need help. Or even just, that same area, and like people wrote in about like feeling like you were doing that wrong, of like, I think the first kind of wing is hanging over a little ledge and there's no railing or like guide track. And so that's kind of where you learn to like, okay, I can stand on it, but no, that's going to be clumsy. It's going to fall apart. And then it brings you down to now you see the tracks and will actually guide you out for exactly where you need to go here. But
in that same vein, just that they give you like multiples of all of the tools you're going to need for something, because they're just anticipating that like not only might you mess this up the first time, but like you might mess it up and then immediately realize what you're supposed to do. And it's just nice having that other cart or whatever like right next to you already. So you just are like, okay, yeah, let me just try that again.
Yep, right. Absolutely. And I was amazed too in that opening area. I think even from the trailers and stuff, I thought like, okay, it's going to be kind of ground level, sky level. But I love how uneven everything is in the sky. Like some of the islands are just way higher than others. And I don't know. I feel like going on so many cover story trips for Game Informer, I heard the stupid talking point so many times of like, this time around in this shooter, we're focusing on verticality. That's the next generation and frontier for shooters. And I was like, what? Okay, Gears 4, verticality. That'll be my number one takeaway word. But I feel like this is the first game where it feels like verticality is important and interesting, where it's like, oh, I actually really need to study and look all around, because even when I'm in the sky, there's stuff above and below me that could pay off in a big way if I could journey over to it. And I think having that starting island not just be Great Plateau in the sky, but have it be like a chunky weird thing where technically there's multiple layers that you're kind of working your way down to if you jump from the right spot, right?
Yeah, it's like recapturing that Breath of the Wild feeling of exploration, making it feel new again by giving you like new actual layers that you're exploring and feel like it's in a really new way. It's always such a fun surprise when you're like, oh, I could actually reach that sky island from here.
Yeah. Dumb question.
Yeah, between that and Ascend, I definitely feel like they've managed to make this place a completely new, like it feels like you're traversing an entirely new world, and it is just completely new, even though it's not. It's just like the addition of those two things have really, I don't know, gone a long way in making you feel like you're discovering everything for the first time.
Yep, for sure. Jared P says, I really think this game is elevated by taking place in the same Hyrule as Breath of the Wild. Jumping down to Hyrule for the first time felt like a dream where you're in a place you know well, but everything's just a little bit different. In the same vein, I'm surprised at how disoriented I am in the world just by having the borders of the tower regions change. That's interesting. Just changing the layout of the states basically is enough to freak you out. Yeah, I feel really, I don't know, I know it's a completely different experience for people who have Breath of the Wild very fresh in their minds and have played it multiple times, but like I beat that game in 2017, loved it, and haven't really gone back in a big way since. So I think a lot of that fine detail of like, oh, this is remixed this way, it's kind of being lost on me. Instead it's just like, okay, there's cool ruins here. I'm sure this would be much more compelling if I realized exactly how this was being changed. But let's see. Spencer S., back to the Skylands, says, I was surprised by the design of Great Sky Island compared to the Great Plateau in Breath of the Wild. The way it drops you into a few small islands first, the stone path on the ground showing you where to go, and even the cadence of how shrines are revealed. It makes me wonder if the developers were responding to seeing first-time players in Breath of the Wild miss certain mechanics or get a bit lost at times. It actually opens up very early, but by making the alternate approaches less obvious, they cater to both experienced players who want to go exploring on their own and new players who need some guidance. Yeah, I was kind of struck by that. I think overall, I think this game is a lot more guided than I was expecting. Not obviously to a point of standard open world games or anything, but I think there is a little more of a guiding hand than I was expecting. I thought maybe the takeaway from Breath of the Wild would be give players even more freedom, but yeah, I see what you're saying a little bit, that they want to push you a certain direction, and maybe that was trying to cater some feedback from players who said they were just overwhelmed by the freedom of Breath of the Wild.
I have a ton of quests right now, for sure.
Yep.
In that menu really early on. But it is still like the quests say, this person saw this thing at this place, generally.
Yep.
Go figure that out. It's still not just following markers.
Right. Robert Q says, I played for 3 hours in the opening area before even getting Ultra Hand. I got to the shrines before they were activated. The sense of exploration is for sure there. Once Ultra Hand came in, I was making mile-long bridges to everywhere, and I just love this game. Oh, that's very sweet. Is it Adrian T? Yeah, it says, ouch. The first Sky Island was really painful for me. Sorry, Sky Island. What was surprising in a disappointing way was that after I realized I went the wrong direction, heading towards the higher shrine in the cold area, I decided, this is Zelda. I can get creative and do it out of order. But apparently that's not the case here. The fact that this one seems like the one place where you must do things in a specific order was so unexpected for me. In a state of denial, I wasted over 4 hours trying over and over to do things, quote unquote, my way.
I was wondering about that because I felt like I made the decision myself and then realized how screwed I would have been if I made a different decision and went for the other one first.
Well, I'm trying to figure, is it just that you need to get Ultra Hand first? Because I definitely did things differently than chat was expecting. And so I think you can remix and choose what order you do those, but it's just you're screwed if you don't have Ultra Hand, or it's going to be more challenging.
I mean, I think you can't, you do have to get those abilities before it really opens up at all. But I do, I think the game doesn't really explicitly say that, which is confusing. Because I don't feel like you don't have to go to any like one temple or area or whatever first. You just have to get some abilities first. You have to get like Ultra Hand and stuff.
Right. So yeah, I'm curious to see how you would get stuck in this area if you did it completely out of order and whatnot. Timothy S. says, in the shrine where you're first given Fuse, I really bumbled getting into the chest on the stone pillar. The solution was to just break. But I didn't realize it was stone break it probably. But I didn't realize it was stone and thought you had to knock it off or get up there. After a lot of failure, I just glued a bunch of stuff to the chest and the weight pulled it down. Having the weight and physics be a part of this new mechanic system really made it feel special. That's good.
I love that stuff.
There was one of, I think like the first chest in one of the shrines where it was like, okay, I'm going to build a bridge and I'm going to walk all the way up there. And I built it up and then it like flopped over. And then it was like, you can just attach the bridge that you just built to the chest and then just bring the whole thing down. But I was like, no, I'm using this bridge. I built it. I'm going to walk my way up there. And I also like in another section, I think it was the first one where they teach you to, like make the hook machine and write it down.
Yep.
Like the bridge I was carrying with me was already so big I could just platform like straight across to the other side. Anyways, but like, no, I'll build the cool little hook, thing, hook trolley and take that across anyway. It was like from the outset, just like completely breaking things. I went up there. There was an area where they show you that hook, hook trolleys are going past just so you get the idea of how to build them. And it was like, I'm going to go up there. And there was nothing up there, but just the fact that I could get up there with a too long bridge is very satisfying.
Yeah.
I do think my first moment of like, we all knew this game was going to be great, but like, I think my first moment of like, oh yeah, I'm going to have a lot of fun building stuff was just attaching a Korok straight to a hook and sending him down a rail. And then I was like, oh, I have to figure out a way for me to get over there too. But just literally that you can just glue a Korok to a hook and be like, see ya.
I love that.
For me.
Which is also nice because like everything I build is like so janky and it's like, I don't know if I want to put this guy on it. It's like, oh no, I can just stick him right on there, make sure he's not going to fall off.
Just glue him to your weird contraptions. That was my favorite thing, is that Koroks are gluable to things.
I haven't done that
I never
yet.
would have thought directly on the hook. That's so good.
Yeah. Joe M. writes in and says, let's talk about the zeitgeist this game currently has online. All kinds of flaming torture devices and launchers have been made in the name of the Korok space program, where it seems the goal is to fling these poor Koroks as far and as high as possible. Haven't you all experimented with the Koroks in devious ways? I have not picked a Korok up. I haven't even considered that as an option, I don't think. Or maybe
you don't care about getting all the Korok seeds?
no. I mean, I guess
not
like
thrown
use them
to
with
you?
Ultra Hand. Like I'm trying to. Maybe there was like the first one you needed to do something with Ultra Hand, but the idea of like using them as little toys to attach to stuff, I have not considered in a big way.
There are pretty common ones that are like, my friend's over there, can you get me to my friend? Which is really cute, and I do always take the time to do those. There was one where he was on top of a mountain, and there was hey, there's my friend with his campfire down there, and having to like build a cart and send him down and like go after him and catch him when he crashes into a rock and stuff.
That's cute.
Those are really fun.
I'm looking.
Yeah,
at that
I haven't been torturing them because they're just, I don't know, they're so cute, and you don't have to torture them for it to be hilarious. I mean, like I said, just gluing one to a hook was already funny enough to me. Like, I don't need to torture him. But, I mean, have you guys seen the Korok rotisserie?
No.
That's one of the... I really have not been super online about this game because I think it's more fun that way. But I saw, I think it was a Polygon article that had just, like, creative ways people are torturing Koroks, and one was like several Koroks on a stick roasting over an open fire, spinning. It was
Perfect. Yeah, Greg Pivo says every viral tweet of a Korok crucifixion or a flaming rocket penis just brings us closer to Nintendo never giving us this kind of creative freedom again. Yes, everyone just be cool. Everyone be nice, please. Milan writes in and says, hey, y'all, please tell me I'm not the only one who dropped the Koroks with the backpacks off the island and sent them back to Hyrule. I did not do that, but that's twisted. No
Yeah,
doubt
do they
about
just
it.
go?
I don't know. It probably
Don't come
just,
back?
they just disappear forever.
I gave mine a cushy ride.
Nice.
I made a huge gondola
Super smart.
with supports and rails. Yeah.
Pixelated Soul says, I can't believe that worked. Quote, that's my main takeaway from the game so far in terms of building things that I needed to get from point A to point B. One highlight for me was creating a huge tower out of the wood planks around every corner. I placed a Korok on a spring at the top. I then climbed to the top of the wall where his Korok friend was, shot the spring with an arrow, and grabbed the flying Korok with Ultra Hand mid-air, successfully reuniting the pair.
I haven't seen a spring yet, but that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I definitely want to find that spring too. Let's see. Mitch says, on the way to Gutenbach Shrine, where you get ascend, I reached the plateau that the shrine was sitting on, but couldn't climb up due to the ice walls. I then noticed that there was a number of trees near me, and I had the idea to make a ladder out of logs using Ultra Hand. To my delight, it worked perfectly. At the top, I realized I could have climbed up some roots on the other side of the plateau, but I love the variety of options and little ways the game makes you feel like an absolute genius.
I did the same thing. And it's great how when you come up with a solution like that, it's not like nobody else would ever have thought of this, but it still feels like I thought of this and that's special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a section up there too where I think there are a couple enemies and a treasure chest, and it's all ice walls. And I built a tree to get up there, and then afterwards I got the ascend power and realized there was like a little platform sticking out, and it's like, oh, that's how you were supposed to do it.
It doesn't matter.
I've
bridges
already
to
been up there,
everything.
man.
Yep. This, I mean,
Just to everything.
you know, we were amazed in the stream just by the dumbest things in the beginning. And I think this game's just going to be that feeling growing more and more throughout it. But like just little things of like, okay, having the slippery, icy slope in that starting area to get up to that shrine. And then it's like, okay, well, I could carry a torch to keep myself warm, but then the torch I can't use if I'm climbing up the slope. So just realizing like, oh wait, I can just use Ultra Hand to grab the flaming torch, lob it up into the snow, and then climb up there and meet it and grab it again. Again, that's like not even Ultra Hand 101, that's Ultra Hand 001, but like just that level is like, all right, this is already exciting for seeing where this game's gonna go.
I don't know. I think every time you say an idea, it's going to be the first time someone's thought of that idea. Like that's happening a lot already in this talk where I'm like, oh, that's obvious, but I had not thought of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Danny Yorkus writes in and says, please tell me I was not the only one to try the minecart over that stretch of broken tracks that is suspended in midair between the islands. Only noticed the gap at the last second. Heart drops. Fell to my death the first time. Okay, maybe gluing a fan on the bottom will propel me enough to get over the broken gap? Here we go! Hit the broken track and fell again, but the fan sends Link and the cart hovering towards the horizon for an even slower, more awkward death. I ended up just gluing 6 trees together and climbing up that way, but I can't wait to mess around more with the physics in this bonkers game.
Yeah, I definitely did not see that the track was broken there. I managed to like jump out and get back. I like didn't die there, but it surprised me, and then it was like, But it's just another opportunity to build something more creative than, the last solution.
Yep.
Did that spot have a hook? I feel like I remember that and it had a hook.
I think so, or it was like connected to another one of those plateaus that you could run back and grab a hook for it.
Airhick writes in and says, I'd attach 2 fans to a minecart to get up a long winding path, and at the top there were 2 more minecarts. Naturally, I attached all 3 together and sent them back down the track. Of course, there was a track ahead and no cart, so instead I was able to just make a big bridge with some wood planks and logs. Turns out a lot of problems so far can be solved with big bridge. And then Airhick says, soar long, Airhick, indeed. Let's see, Lou D writes in and says, I was nervous watching a timid Link reaching out to hold Zelda's hand with his new and possibly still corrupted arm. Okay, so that's during that cutscene, I think, with like the Master Sword, where it like transfers between them somehow, I think is what he's talking about.
I think it's when she's falling. She's like
Oh,
falling
okay.
into the abyss and he's reaching out with his like gnarly hand. And I was like, no, don't grab that.
Yeah.
You're going to die.
Come on, be cool.
And she didn't, so it's all good.
Nobby Buckles asks, Leo, would you say that Raru is Link's right-hand man?
Nice.
Nice. We would say it,
Nice.
Nobby. We would say it.
I'm glad they finally let Scooby-Doo name a character.
Let's see. Jared N says, most of us probably remember, including Leo, that Raru's name is the Sage of Light in Ocarina of Time, but it's also a reference to one of the town names in Zelda 2. That's so cool that Raru goes back that far.
Nice.
Generationally, it's the classic Zelda thing, I guess, of things are just there over and over again. Or help me out, Zelda timeline people, is the idea that the Zonai civilization, I mean, that's still in between Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild somewhere, right? Or are the
These
Zonai...
are Kyle questions, I think.
But if I just shout it loud enough, maybe Kyle will join. But are the Zonai pre-Skyward Sword? Help me out, at least Twitch chat. Zonai is earlier than Skyward Sword. Kyle is actually watching live on Twitch. Thank you, Kyle. Pre-Skyward Sword. All right, thank you. Wow, I didn't think that would actually work. That was bizarre.
You can summon him anytime.
If you yell loud enough.
Kyle.
My bird is not named after this, but there is a Meadow Swamp in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which makes me really happy every time I see it on the map.
Oh, that's perfect. Did you go full pet dork and like show him the swamp? Like, look, Mito, look.
I haven't gone there yet. I just I like did the tower where I can now see it, and I'm like, oh my god, I gotta go there. I gotta show him.
It's gonna be green. Ben B writes in and says, I love that Raru's description that appears on screen when he's introduced to you is, quote, source of the right arm. Yeah, that's it. That's what he's good for. Hot Raru thoughts, everybody? Pro, con Raru?
I like the goat people. I think they're cool.
I do think he's cool. Goat
beef.
with like Super Saiyan 3 hair. It's like, all right, I guess that seems fine. I hate to be a downer. I did have a thought of like, imagine if he had an interesting voice. Can just imagine if it was like a compelling tone instead of just kind of default abstract fantasy guy. You know, that's my take. But hey, look, it's just me. I don't want to judge. I don't want to nitpick. Forrest Cole writes in and says, there's a real sense of melancholy in the opening area. Raru reminiscing of the society that was once there. He comments that he is uneasy, but the constructs still operate like nothing is going on. One of the constructs even comments that they've called out because Zonite resources are low, but they received no answer, and so they continue their work. Yeah, are you all getting that kind of sense of just sad fallen civilization up there?
Yeah, it's unsettling. It's a little like, I don't know. I don't do well with lonely robots. They always make me sad.
Just Wall-E syndrome stuff.
Yeah, exactly. These are a bunch of lonely robots, and I don't like it. They're real. You know, you swing some fire near their face on accident. And they're like, please don't hurt me. Like, I'm sorry.
So scared. And they have like those floppy, like big dog ears too. But like, yeah, the first time we ran into that steward construct, I was like, oh, okay, this is an interesting design. I thought it was just gonna be like a character. I didn't realize, oh no, they're just gonna be all over the place, and this is just gonna be a archetype for different robots up in the sky and whatnot. Crab Palace writes in and says, it cracks me up every time Raru fades out. It's so abrupt with no particle effects or anything. He just F's off. Yeah, that is true. Robert's, he's doing his own thing. You know, you can't really second guess him too much. Bob K said, did you all take on the mini boss on the opening Sky Island? It was tough with just 3 hearts since 1 ground slam was all it took to kill Link, but I was able to triumph after a few attempts. Seeing all the various forms it took after ultra handing his core block was so inventive. I didn't see this. What is this?
He's like a little floating Tetris piece that turns into other block formation things. And basically it's like a big Tetris-y thing with one block that's clearly the weak spot, and you just got to always be finding that. In the beginning, it's usually under him, which was kind of... It was a tricky boss fight, because, yeah, you don't have very many tools at that point. But, yeah, it was... I'm not normally like I will seek out this early boss, and I will triumph. I'm normally like, I'll come back when I am overpowered. But, I don't know, I challenged myself to this one, and I thought it was pretty cool. There's a point where he's kind of like doing the, like... cube rolling over on its side thing that you see in video games sometimes. Right. You know what I'm talking about? Of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was fun. It's cool. Nice.
I gotta go back up there.
I thought it was a cool little intro to like difficult boss, but you can still totally do it if you put your mind to it.
Right.
How have y'all found the difficulty overall for the early part? I really was in a rush to get hearts. I felt like I was getting one-shotted all the time, and I was frustrated, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely put my first like 2 or 3 into hearts, and now I'm finding it not so bad. But yeah, it was rough at first, and also just getting used to the getting used to like using your shield, as stupid as that sounds. Like,
no, that's true. And recognizing like when you don't have it out because you have a 2-handed weapon.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep. So I think I'm not that great at video games. So the fact that I'm going through this okay feels like it's probably not too terrible, but there's definitely parts where I'm like, I'm just not going to fight this thing right now. This is just, I'm not ready for it, because if I get hit once, I'm done.
Yeah, I haven't like locked into a challenging spot yet, but I've kind of found it's kind of been, I think it's all good, but I found that it's kind of, it's a real hit or miss thing. I found that either I'm like, oh, I'm doing way more damage than I thought I would just for like some average crapper weapon, and I'm actually taking these guys out pretty easily. Or it's a lot of situations of like, bam, 1 hit, I'm dead. It's like, wait, what was that? Okay. So I haven't felt like a great push and pull, but I think that kind of works. I kind of like the kind of hodgepodge nature of like, you don't need to have the best weapon to do a decent chunk of damage to these guys. Maybe I'm still in too much of that Elden Ring mindset or something.
Yeah, it really encourages you to figure out, you know, like either cheap or creative combinations in order to do more damage, because they're going to be doing a ton to you. I also like there was a brief, very enjoyable period where I was doing gangbusters because I had put one of the flame-throwing Zonai devices on my shield. Ooh. And then when you just pull out your shield, you just torch whatever is in front
what?
of you.
I haven't done that yet.
It uses up your shield's durability, so it will eventually break. But I feel like I want to exploit that more. I gotta hit up. I haven't messed around with the gacha machines too much, but I feel like I gotta hit one of those up and get a bunch of flamethrower stuff.
Yeah, I was struggling, and maybe part of it in the beginning was just like I didn't find a shirt. Everyone on Twitch was like, "How did you miss the shirt?" But all right.
I took a note. Did I miss a shirt? I felt like I was shirtless for the first 4 hours.
Yeah, and so I was surprised that like, okay, the first store, which you kind of get in that little hometown area, it's like the first shirt I think is 130 rupees. I'm like, that seems
I didn't get any rupees until 6 hours in. What is going on with that?
You gotta just start selling stuff pretty early. And I mean, I do feel like rupees are kind of scarce in this game. And again, like I'm trying to not sell things like sapphires and rubies and stuff, which would help a lot. But like you can sell opals, which you find fairly frequently, and those are like 30 rupees. But yeah, I've definitely found like getting halfway decent clothes in this game has been very, very difficult.
Yeah. Fred DeNovo writes in saying, anyone else unexpectedly poor? I can't find a rupee to save my life. It's been a grind trying to get the Traveler's set of armor to boost my defense. I love it that at least at the start, rupees are more valuable. I can't remember if it was the same way in Breath of the Wild. yeah, I've had to just sell stuff too, just to get rupees to buy those clothes, because it is just this general feeling of like, am I missing something here? It's like, or is everything just a little scrappier in this world? You kind of have to go out and find your own rupees.
Are any of you guys using amiibos?
Oh, no.
Amiibos are still a thing. I learned booting up Tears of the Kingdom.
I hated that idea in Breath of the Wild, because I remember everyone in the Game Informer office was like, well, you got to play with amiibos and get your daily drops. I'm like, this is ruining the purity of that game, and I hate it. And it bugs me in this game, a game so beautiful and pure, that every time you open up the abilities thing, it's just a big amiibo logo, registered trademark. It's like, oh, it's so gross to me.
I totally get that. But at the same time, it's just like, look, I don't want to shoot deer all day to get some meat so that I have things to eat later. Like, I'm just gonna sit here, and for 2 minutes, I'm gonna get some drops of some fish and some meat and random stuff from amiibos, and then I just play the game normally. But then I don't have to do as much like hunting around for especially food resources. That's where it really starts to bug me, where it's like, I'm pretty far into whatever adventure I'm doing, and I've just been like hit so many times that I'm like, well, I have no more food left. If I die here, I just won't be able to complete this journey. So that's where like the scarcity bothers me enough to use amiibo. But I mean, I get it. I totally agree that it's like, it's a little cheap, and it is a little like takes you out of the, I don't know if I want to say purity of the game, but like it does take you out of it a little bit.
But it's any amiibo a certain amount per day or something?
Yeah, I don't actually know if there's a limit, which that feels really weird to me, because I thought it used to be 3, and I could just be making that up because that's what it is in a lot of other games. But no, I did like 5, and I was like, is there not a limit to this? Can I just keep going? And that does feel like... So, I mean, yeah, you can get all the rupees you want if you just want to sit there and scan amiibos all day.
Okay.
Oh, weird. So there's no...
That's not that fun.
Follow-up question, is this an amiibo?
For audio listeners, he's holding a Mr. Grinch bobblehead, Mr. Grinch bobblehead, ladies and gentlemen. So there's no like logic. It's like you put Samus on there, and it's like, I don't know, here's a fish. But I thought wasn't there something with like, don't you get skins for the hang glider or something?
Yeah, some of them give you that. It's also the same as Breath of the Wild, where some of the like Zelda themed amiibos will give you like cool. It's not good armor, but cool armor. Like you know, you can have the tunic from Ocarina of Time or whatever. But like it's bad, but it is, you know, if you want to look like that, you can look like that.
Right. What y'all wearing right now?
I got a cool shirt from a Sky Island that gives me more air mobility.
Yep.
I got
that too. Yeah,
I got that same one.
The diving challenge thing. You have to
do there. Is it Courage Island or whatever? That was really cool. Yeah, it's like I like except there's like the gotcha machine down there on the bottom, and so I put all my Zone devices and stuff into that. And then I went and talked to the Mr. Robot guy, and he's like, you need to give me one of those in order to go through the Sky Challenge. But he's like, you know what? Just take the first one for free. So it didn't matter for that one. But then you need to pay him after that. But I got through it in that one try and got that wingsuit for at least the first round, which is nice. Let's see.
I got that. I'm wearing that and the snow pants that you get up in the island, which like... The one criticism that I still have that I felt, I guess the same amount, like one of the criticisms that I had of Breath of the Wild that hasn't changed that much in Tears of the Kingdom is I feel like I have opened countless treasure chests in Tears of the Kingdom, and I got excited one time, and it was when it was those pants, and it was like, oh, this feels like this is super valuable. This, like, I am happy that I got this. And the other times it's like, it's a piece of amber or it's an opal or whatever, which is kind of nice. But I wish that is one of the kind of traditional Zelda things that I do miss, like having more impactful chest treasures that you get.
Yeah. I feel like that is my main gripe too. It is like the biggest flaw in the design is that I guess it's inherently fun to do a little side challenge in a shrine and get a chest. Like the puzzles are fun enough that that's worthwhile, but it sucks that they are all bad. that I'm
Yeah,
getting
they're all pretty
a
lame.
third ass bow that I have an inventory full of and I can't even hold it.
Right.
It's like, and even when you get a weapon, it's like you can't store enough weapons. So it is like getting any new thing makes you have to choose what thing you like and wish you could have to get rid of. It just is a bad feeling to get a treasure chest.
Yeah,
It
Yep.
sucks.
which I appreciate. At least they streamlined that, because in Breath of the Wild, you would open it, you would see it was a bow or whatever. You don't have the room. It would close on you. You'd have to go into your inventory, chuck something into the abyss, and then open it again and go through like the whole thing. So I appreciate that they at least give you the option to just drop something immediately. But yeah, I wish those were the gotcha items or whatever, like give me
Sometimes they
something
are.
that
I
is like,
did find one with that once.
Okay.
One treasure chest that had that. But yeah, I think it's
Those are
literally
great to
only
get.
been one.
yeah.
Super rare.
Vincent K writes in, talking about leaving the Sky Islands at the beginning. He said, quote, "Link, come find me," Zelda said while I dove neck first into Hyrule, missing the water by a few inches. Yeah, well, that happens. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, that dive down to Hyrule, I love that whole experience, just seeing how things have shaken up and where they drop you. And it's like, all right, you're going to be far enough away from the castle, but that journey there will teach you what you need to know about what's changing here. But speaking of diving into that pond, yes, Fried Spam here read my mind saying one of my favorite little details in the game is how the water rains back down after you take a big dive into a body of water. It is so satisfying. Was that in Breath of the Wild all along and I just didn't notice it? I can't imagine, but it always is like a little bit longer of a rain sprinkle than you think from your dive, and somehow that just feels so good. I don't know what it is.
That was my little detail that I wrote down of just like, it is surprising how just that little bit of sound design makes it feel so much. I have jumped, like swan dived off of buildings and things in video games so many times, into water or whatever, but just that little bit of extra, like the splashing that comes down, makes it feel so much more satisfying. It's like that is more satisfying and impactful than the drop is for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. I also, in the run up to the Wind Temple, when you crash through the ice barriers, water like drips down from it when you go underneath it, and I love the way that all works.
Oh, that's so good. Eric W. Says, when you first land in Hyrule, the area does a great job of pushing the idea that this is not the same game you played 6 years ago. At first, you may feel like it's too similar, but it doesn't take long until a bokoblin carrying apples gets flung into the air and everything spills out. As you progress to the first town, you see little construction depots scattered throughout, caves and more, all not present in the first title. Also, Lookout Landing is simply wonderful. It could be the scrappiness of the setup, but it feels a lot more quote-unquote lived in than other staple towns from Breath of the Wild. Feels like there's a higher density of NPCs. It's just great stuff. It's just great stuff. That's true. Yeah, the construction depots. I really enjoyed, making little carts and like, okay, I'll make a little skateboard now and put like two of those little logs together and take that down the hill. I still feel like I'm at a phase in the game where I see those all over the place, and it's always just like the same pieces. Like, I just got 4 wheels and 4 pieces of timber and 4 pieces of big wood. And I feel like, am I missing something? I really enjoyed messing around with those and playing with those, but I don't know what the game thinks I should be doing with all of those all the time. Am I missing
Big
something?
bridges.
Okay.
Big bridges everywhere. I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like and we might just not be far enough to see if those get more varied in what they offer later on. But yeah, I mean, it's useful that those things are in lots of places. But yeah, there's not like, you kind of figure out sort of the limits of your creativity with that pretty quickly.
Right.
And then, I don't know, maybe the little gotcha, like, Zonai devices and stuff later make that even more versatile. I mean, I've got like wheels now that are the Zonai wheels, are more like car things. So like you can make it more like a car rather than a cart. But yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. Like, I feel like they're a little stale.
I think that's a good point, though. I forget about the Zonai devices, but you mentioning that just now, it makes me think like, yeah, you can be, too far from your horse and you can make like a longer term car depending on what you have, like something that you could actually use for a good while rather than just to get down the next hill.
I don't have a way to steer anything yet. Do you guys?
You'll get that.
Okay.
There's a little platform thing. I I found one. I didn't have any of the, like personal building machine things. So there were like 2 of them next to some wooden planks. So I put one on the wooden plank and then I stood on it and tried to control it. And it's like, well, obviously this isn't going anywhere. I don't know what I was expecting from it, but
A hoverboard.
But I look forward to trying it out when I have some wheels.
That steering wheel, which isn't like it is in the middle or the northwest corner. It is like within this scope. That blows me away how that works. Putting it on a floating rectangle, whatever those things are you see all the time, the floating little platforms, with a fan on one side and another side and a steering wheel on top, and it just knows what I want to do.
That's so weird.
Like without expressly connecting these things, it like knows what's attached and what kind of pressure it should apply for you pushing the stick in that direction. It's so impressive.
Yeah, just smart little details too of like just when you hit one of the Zonai devices, like all of them activate. It's just like, it feels like everything, it's just been fine tuned to make it as smooth as possible. Even, I get that Ultra Hand building can take maybe a little bit longer than some people expect, but still like the system is so weird and messy, and for it to work as well as it does is a miracle.
I made a cart. All Zonai devices, I was just standing above a little fire pit of moblins, and I put a cart down, a fan on the back, and a time bomb on the middle. And I just hit it, and it all went, and it worked perfectly. It went straight at it, and it blew up in the middle of all of them and launched them in all different directions. It was crazy. You never expect that to
incredible.
like work and be satisfying on your first try.
Right.
But this game does it.
Yeah, it does feel like there's some like tuning in there that we don't see that like just makes you nail things that you should like. There's no way that you timed that correctly or whatever. Like in just. If everything was on like a set thing, but it's like, oh no, we see what you're doing here, and we're gonna like tune it to make sure it works.
Totally. Even like the hill I pushed it down on like had an angle. It shouldn't have gone straight at them, but
yeah.
it worked.
Uncharted Wolf over on Patreon that said, my most proud accomplishment is creating what I call, quote unquote, the log, which is just a bunch of logs stuck together that's so long that I went over the Ultra Hand limit. I haven't found that limit yet. Has anybody else found the limit?
Lay your way. Even Kyle didn't find that limit.
Yeah. The limit does not exist. I then proceeded to go through most of the islands with this masterpiece. So hang on, so Uncharted Wolf, like that's the part that I don't quite understand. You make the log, but then you just carry it around everywhere? Like
I mean, you can just Ultra Hand and walk with it, I
guess so.
Lay your way?
Uranus Monkey says, was anyone else intimidated by the Ultra Hand mechanic for building creative solutions to puzzles? I have the creativity of a bag of rocks in most games, so I was pretty worried. After spending about 10 hours with the game, I felt a lot better about it and realized you can cheese your way through some shrines without building the quote-unquote intended way. Yeah, I think we're all going in a little skeptical about our building abilities, but I've just been more and more delighted the more I play.
I do want to hear, everyone here probably has one memorable moment of them doing something they absolutely were not meant to do in a shrine to make it work. Does everyone have a story for that? Mm-hmm. I can start.
Please.
There was a tank you're supposed to get over some lava. I could not figure out how to make it go, which in hindsight, I'm pretty sure I just had to hit the wheels. But it was 2 pieces. And so I basically just made the cartoon where you're like laying out the train track as you're walking kind of thing.
Sure.
I was just standing on one end of it, detaching it, putting it over on this side, walking over, detaching it, and just making a bridge out of the tank all the way across the lava, which took me like 15 minutes. And I'm pretty sure probably would have taken 40 seconds if I had done it correctly. But felt great.
Yeah.
Nice. My friend, this is what my friend did.
Right.
It wasn't a shrine. It was a tower. The northern center region.
Yep.
There's a tower where it's blocked and you have to ascend these platforms to get to the top platform that's blocking the opening and like move it out of the way however you want to do that. And I did it and I had a great time doing it. And when my friend was playing it near there, I was like, oh, you should go do that tower because I really want to see how you do it. And he walks up to it, goes on the first platform, puts a rocket on the side, the bottom of like 8 platforms. Did this happen where it shot straight up all the way at an angle where it just hit the top platform that was blocking the opening and knocked it off, and you got the freeze frame and it zoomed out and showed like he completed it in 4 seconds. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's oh, see, there were 2 rockets there, so I put one on either side like a responsible
Me
person
too.
to make it straight, go straight. That's awesome.
I feel like rockets are like,
symmetrically.
yeah, rockets seem like the big game changer. I feel like everything now is just countdown to when I find these rockets. Where was the first one?
Yeah, I haven't gotten any rockets either.
Is it just by the temple or something?
I don't know. It's all happened really gradually, and then
Yeah.
I feel like once I find them, I keep finding them, and I don't know if that's a behind the scenes game design thing or if it is
Right.
just regional at this
Okay.
point.
Yeah, I mean, I do. Where Leo's talking about is one of the first places I saw it, but I also saw some in a Skyland somewhere before that too. I don't exactly remember.
Okay. Starkiller.
That's when I was being shot at by a rocket arrow,
That's so good.
which is really really fun.
Really stupid idea to put a rocket on an arrow. Starkiller writes in and says, Nintendo is the king of efficiently and sometimes discreetly tutorializing the player. Most of the shrines I've run across so far have been one simple item, mechanic, or idea that builds on itself throughout the shrine. By the time you finish it, it feels like Nintendo is saying, do you get how this works now? Now go out into the world and play with it. Yeah, I mean, to the point that I'm amazed that I feel like I'm not exactly sticking to the quote-unquote rough path that they want me to, but I'm still finding like tutorial shrines, it feels like very naturally, to the point that I'm like, are they swapping this? So just like this number of shrine I go into, they make it this tutorial? Because it feels
I wondered
bizarre.
the same thing.
I doubt that they're doing it, but
Yeah, it doesn't seem like something they would do, but I was wondering that too, of just like, oh, I guess I lucked into, finding the one that's reteaching me how to dodge enemy attacks.
yep.
I think they
Exactly.
just have such a handle on like human psychology. They're just like, you're gonna want to go to the top of
Yeah.
this thing, and then when you're on
Right.
the top of this thing, you're gonna see this thing, and you're gonna want to go there. And you almost have to like, to avoid that stuff, you almost have to like go against your instinct. Like, no, I won't climb the tall thing. I won't look
Yeah.
for things off in the distance.
Right.
Case in point, we all got the flying shirt, and I thought I
Yes.
was some kind of exploration genius.
Yeah,
before this conversation.
exactly. Yeah, but they know their heat maps at this point, I'm sure, and they just ran enough people through this game. But it's such a bummer. I was appreciative that they did a couple of interviews with the developers, it seems like, around the launch. I'm trying to find all of them. I think I read as many as I could find so far. But like, maybe if they give a GDC talk, they'll share this. But I hope at some point that we get some insight into their reactions, their first reactions to seeing the internet tackle this game and tear apart this game. Like, it might be a year before they do the next round of interviews, and that right now everybody on the team is like sharing clips and going like, what the hell? And like, I want to know what they are seeing people do that is blowing their minds, but it's going to be a while probably.
Will they address all of the phallic objects?
Is that
in
a
the
big
GDC
thing?
talk? It's a thing in everything where you can build things. I
Okay.
mean,
TTP, is that what they call it?
That's it. God, excuse me?
You get it.
Okay.
Time to blank.
TTP.
That's right.
Yeah.
TTP, Jeffem, you get it. TTP, Mido. God's Garage writes in and says, I'm shocked at how many Zonai devices there are to find in the game. I found a shrine with a weird Zonai spring in the central Hyrule area, and it quickly became one of my go-to ways to get up cliffs and launch into the air. If you stack them on each other with Ultra Hand, it'll boost you higher and higher. I stacked 10 or so, placed it on the ground, and launched from the surface up to a sky island just by stacking some springs.
Wow.
Cool.
That's ridiculous.
That reminds me, a reason I might not have been having trouble with getting to the Wind Temple as much, unless you also did this, Kelsey. I remembered that I can make fire out of wood and flint and make it a bigger fire with a
Yep.
pine cone, and then riding those updrafts all the time. So like, let
Someone
me skip
taught
along
me
sections.
that in the like snowy area. Someone was like, if you put I think it was near the horse stable, if I
Yep.
remember correctly. They're
Yep.
like, it's so weird when you put a pine cone in the fire, it makes this crazy updraft. And I was like, oh yeah, and then I was using that a lot.
Yeah, is that the same guy where he's outside of the Gazette area, I think, in the snow area, and he's like, yeah, don't waste pine cones. They're big and explosive in fires. Whatever you do, don't put it in the fires. And immediately just like threw a bunch in the fire right in front of him. He's like, I told you not to do it. It's nice that they reacted directly to what I was doing.
Classic.
Classic fun.
I also love the way balloons work. Making hot air balloons, needing a source of fire for that.
Yes.
I used a cart with a fan and a balloon on the front, and I just held a torch underneath it, and I scaled a mountain that way. and went right past this moblin camp, and they all saw me and got aggroed and just like threw rocks at me as I was going past.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite shrines so far, was like the hot air balloon shrine, where you're trying to like lift the different things, different levels, and there's like all those layers above you and whatnot. And like I always run into the situation like, okay, I lost control of that one. It's out of my range. I can't recall it. Okay, I could still climb the ladder and go all the way back up there to drop the rocks down and all that stuff. Like that was my favorite, I think, so far.
That was a fun one.
Jeffum's Backlog somehow writes in on Patreon. They say, man, some of these shrines can be long and cumbersome. They're such an important thing to complete, but they completely jam up my progress. I really wish shrines weren't the only way to get hearts. I hear that.
The shrines are my favorite part, I feel like.
Yeah.
If there were a Zelda game that were only shrines like this, I would love it.
It feels like there are fewer than Breath of the Wild.
I've abandoned one shrine because I couldn't figure it out. But because there are a couple of them that I think are tough, and it's frustrating because like I don't really want to look up the solution. That's not fun. But it's like if I can't figure it out, it's just like, well, I'm not going to waste like an hour in here. I will simply come back to this later. Maybe when I have more tools, maybe it'll be more obvious later, or I'll have more broken things to do.
I got stuck on one as well. It wasn't the one where there's just the first room you go into and the door's closed and there's really no other clues.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, I love that one too. I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, it was like I think it had something to do. It was called something like falling courageously or something along those lines, but it's like there's nowhere to fall. There's nothing to... I really did not understand that one. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'll come back to this later.
We'll have to check back in later in the deepest dive for that.
Yeah, Joseph Stanichar, former intern at Game Informer, he says, hey, MinnMaxers, did any of you have trouble with the Maya-Chen shrine called, quote-unquote, a fixed device? I must have spent an hour trying to figure it out and eventually gave up, hoping I could come back to it later and understand it. And then he edited his comment being like, I figured it out now, but this isn't the one you're thinking of. This is a different one that also is stuff, apparently. I haven't seen this one either.
Fixed device.
Yeah, I don't remember this one.
That doesn't ring a bell to me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I need more to go on than the name of the temple.
Sorry, Joseph. Vincent K. writes in and says, I'm sure there are a dozen super smart and creative ways to solve the shrine puzzles, but here I am just piling stacks of wood to get around and jamming gates from closing to achieve my goal. That's great. Although, where are you getting all that wood inside the shrines? I feel like it's pretty rare to have a shrine where there's just a big pile of lumber ready to go for you.
Can I share the first broken strategy?
Yeah.
Skip ahead 45 seconds if you don't want, if you think it'll ruin the game for you.
Okay.
My friend said in Breath of the Wild, or in Tears of the Kingdom conversation, yeah, early on I discovered that I can raise a platform up and then bring it back down and then stand on it and press recall and it solves every shrine.
Yep.
And I'm trying to like make myself not do that.
I thought that was the point, because I had that epiphany too of like early on in the shrine realizing like, okay, I need to get up there. Oh, I just move this block and then I can stand on it and recall and then it'll bring me where I need to go. Like that was a great epiphany, but you
definitely can't do that in every shrine. Like that is...
Yeah, he wasn't super far or anything, but yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, I don't know. That again, all of this stuff feels kind of intended though.
I think so.
If you can do it and it works, I think that's what the game's about.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah, they'd probably, if they didn't want you to do it, whatever would be too high, higher than you can lift something with God Hand, I would assume.
God Hand? PS2 game?
Ultra Hand. I call it the wrong
But yeah,
it's godly. It's godly.
It's such a specific thing though. It's like, do they really balance every shrine with that in mind that you can do that?
I don't know. I don't
know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Isn't it weird to have a game like this come from Nintendo with this? Like, in interviews they have said that like, oh yeah, no, we just saw the wacky videos people were making Breath of the Wild and we said we can up that a notch. Like that is kind of their starting point for this, which is so beautiful and perfect. But it's so weird for like a Nintendo philosophy. And it feels like the type of philosophy that's like the people who are really into modding on PC. And it's just weird to have like that vibe inside of this separate enclosed ecosystem at Nintendo,
I disagree. I think this goes back to like very early Nintendo philosophy where it's like video games should be like toys. Like this should be a toy box for you.
Right.
And they finally just have the technology now and the know-how that they can make it a real like, here's some toys for you, figure out how to be imaginative and have your own fun. Like that feels extremely Miyamoto, doesn't it? Like just it's not so much that we made a nice story or a nice environment or whatever for you. We just dumped out a bunch of toys on the ground and like go figure it out on your own. Have fun, kids.
So it's Ultra Hand getting in touch with the original Ultra Hand from the 60s. Like we're going back to those roots directly here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very like, I mean, that is the Ultra Hand of Nintendo, like the 1968-ish device, 66. Like that's a toy that has no point. It's literally
Right.
just a like, it's one of those like stretchy, grabby hand things. And they packed it with some blocks because they just felt like, okay, we have to like technically give you something to do. But the whole like point behind that toy is like, you'll figure out how to have fun with this. This thing's weird. You'll figure it out. And so I don't know. That's kind of a beautiful extension of it, really, that it's made its way into this game is like, you'll figure out how to have fun with this. We're not going to tell you the solution. You'll glue some things together and it'll be fun for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm certainly biased in this direction as number one Hitman immersive sim diehard, but it's like I think there's that connection between PC modding, whatever, and the freeness of this game's gameplay, and the connection is just like it is the best way to make a game, and it's frankly embarrassing that other companies aren't doing it this way.
Yeah. Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, okay, let's be real here. 2023, God of War Ragnarok, what the hell was that? Who cares?
Well,
Can we get real?
no, they cried a couple times. And you had the freedom of where you threw your axe. But
We'll check back in 2024. That's fine. We'll circle back.
I mean, 50 years from now, Tears of the Kingdom's going to be on another level from God of War Ragnarok. There's no doubt. It already is on another level, but yeah, I think one of these games will age a lot more poorly than the other for sure,
It's
The
just
next God
so
of War-
special right now. Tears
Yeah.
of the Kingdom. It's so exciting to see.
Yeah.
Kratos is going to find Atreus' toy chest, and it's just going to be all kinds of physics-based goofy stuff, and he's going to spend the whole time building things.
Yes.
It does. I've been thinking about that a lot too, of just like, clearly some designers were inspired by Breath of the Wild. Maybe not as many as we would hope and we wanted, but there's definitely, you can see like, okay, short hikes out there. Chia to some extent is in there. Elden Ring, maybe debatable, right? But it feels like this is just another example of like, listen up industry, this type of thing. Like, please, every developer, please play this. Just make something as good as this. Everybody, how hard can it be?
Yeah, come on.
But just, embracing that freedom and the simple toy aspect. Yeah, absolutely is something that I hope more people take. Because that is the feeling. It does feel, it's too much of a shorthand to just say, oh, childlike wonder. But it does feel like I'm just a cheeky, stupid kid playing with toys. And I feel like I'm getting away with a lot. And I'm excited about every opportunity here. And it's such a rare feeling in games. And they're called games. They should be fun because toys are fun.
But also, like, not every game has to be this.
No, Kelsey, okay, how
My
do I mute
game
her?
of the year of last year, Xenoblade Chronicles, like, that is not a toy box. It's a very story-driven game, and I loved it. Like, so, I mean, I think there's room for... I don't think everyone in the industry needs to, like, take notes and, like, do this. I'm just happy that this exists and that some people are taking notes.
That's totally true. And it will inspire people in like way smaller ways than them putting Ultra Hand in their game. But I'm also a little cynical about that happening because all open world games had to take from Breath of the Wild was just take the markers out, take the waypoints out, let us explore it. And nobody did that except Chia, Game of the Year.
Right, yeah. Well, I mean, there are markers on the map in Chia.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, it's still hard to explore and you can't like fast travel everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
It still feels that same like I need to get to this place and I'm doing things along the way because it captures that.
Yeah. Sam K writes in and says, I thought it was really cool that the game essentially starts with the player running around what was such a scary and dangerous area in the last game. It felt so weird to be running up the ramp to Hyrule Castle with only a few rusty swords and just 4 hearts. The choice to start at the castle set this game apart from Breath of the Wild right from the get-go. That is a great point. That is super smart for sure.
I definitely thought like I was not supposed to go there, which like for story reasons, like you kind of have to.
Right.
But I saw the marker on my map, but I was like, are they just telling me like that's the end point of the game? And eventually I figured out like, no, you need to go here now. But yeah, I think I was just so tuned from Breath of the Wild to be like, that's the end. To
Right.
be like, I should stay away from that.
Yep. You're a tuned Link. And then getting up there, I thought it was fun too, how it's like the kind of windy path going down and they have like the cart materials at the top where it's like, okay, this is another just reminder to please play around with these materials, even though the curve makes it like really tricky to actually like get a cart and it wasn't rolling as much as I wanted to. But did you all try and roll back down that thing? Oh, okay. Everyone's playing a different game apparently.
On the tutorial island?
No. With the castle. When you go talk to Haas, I think his name is, right? The guard at the top. Then you come
Oh,
back
no.
down.
I was wondering, though. I felt like I missed something because I was like, I shouldn't just be running on the ground this much in this game. There's got to be a more fun way to do this, so I didn't see that.
Especially when like stamina is really short.
Yes, the 2-second sprint time is very silly. It sucks like getting a hit on a weak point on a boss and they crumple down and you sprint in for the finishing blow and you get a third of the way there and just stop and start walking instead and then they get back up. That sucks.
That was my other main criticism that I was hoping would be different in this one, and it's just the starting amount. Like they hamstring you so much so that you will then go upgrade that for like 60 hours, and I wish that was a little less punitive feeling in the beginning.
Yeah, like 3 hearts starting out, sure, but give us a little stamina boost because that's going to be so much more frustrating on a second-to-second gameplay basis.
If I can sprint longer than Link can at the beginning of this game, like that's a bad sign.
Yeah. I do think is like having that idea of like, okay, you know, Ganondorf shoots the magic stuff and the Master Sword's getting deteriorated. Like, it's a pretty smart way to Metroid us. It felt like, okay, this feels about right. You have to reset us. This is a cool way to do it. And I love just the simple animation of it, seeing the hearts, like, and then they like slowly wind down, like it's just a Price is Right game or something until you get to 3 hearts to start out. Like, I thought that was a fun way to do it. Did everybody find Haas? Is it Haas, I think, the guard? But when he was roaming around with his band of monster killers out in the wild. So he's marching around. He's like, hey, we're about to raid some monsters. You want to come with us, Link? And it's like, hell yeah, let's do it. And then there's like this whole monster encampment out in Hyrule Field. And then him and all of his troops just like, charge! Like, Link, we need you. You're the best swordsman. And then it just feels like a Dynasty Warriors game where like there's just a whole group of a bunch of people fighting in this area. And it's really surprisingly cool. Believe it or not, frame rate chugs a little bit as it's happening, but it's just like, oh, it's cool to be just in the middle of like a big fight with a bunch of other NPCs. Yeah. Let's see. Rodrigo says, oh, and then I think you might get like 100 rupees from it. I remember you get a lot. I was surprised. So that's how I could afford my first shirt. Rodrigo writes in, and Rodrigo says, game is incredible. When I reached Lookout Landing, I said hi and immediately left to go east. The first thing I wanted to do was get on a horse and go see my house in Hateno. Zelda being Zelda, I ended up completely lost going from one place to the next. I had no map. I never did the towers since I didn't think they were tied to a quest, and I never got the paraglider, so I was completely lost and just climbed everywhere. Honestly, it was so much fun to figure out traversal with those limitations. I never found the village or my house, and I eventually reached the sea, and that's when I realized that it was 4 a.m., 10 out of 10, game of the generation, says Rodrigo. Hell yeah.
That's wild that you couldn't do that much without the paraglider.
Yeah. Let's see. People were worried about that. Who are you? Cree McGee was worried. They said, did anybody else start to get a little bit anxious about not having the paraglider? I kind of intuited that if I followed the main quest for a bit, I would eventually obtain it, but I was happy to be proven right. It was still interesting to have it survive, without it for such a long period in the beginning. Yeah, I was worried about it just because at GameSpot, they had a video that popped up in my YouTube feed, and it's like, things not to miss when you start Tears of the Kingdom, and the thumbnail was the paraglider. So when I was like a couple hours into this game, I was like, oh, did I blow it? But nope, I think it's fun to kind of make you appreciate it more by the time you get it.
Yeah, and already have like discovered that there are other solutions.
Yep.
Landing in the water, using devices or whatever.
Right. Isla, pronounced Isa apparently. That's right, the name is Isa. I mispronounced it. They were said, small minor detail I loved. There's an easy to overlook slab of stone right before the Hyrule Castle. And it says, I dedicate this monument to the memory of the souls lost to the calamity from Zelda. Not only that, but there's a silent princess flower laid on top that you can collect. It's a great way to make the story feel more real, and I thought, wow, what a great politician/princess. I felt like a monster when I then sold her flower for money because the early game economy is rough. Well, that's what she'd want you to do, you know? Nick from Atlanta is getting to the heart of it and says, Purah is hot. Let's see, Aaron T. Okay, the Purah stuff. So how much time has passed between Breath of the Wild and this? Is it enough for Purah to age 10 years? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I don't know where I heard 10 years, but I heard 10 years.
Okay. That seems
In
like...
Breath of the Wild, she's 124.
But
Yeah, but she like made herself into a child, so I guess she's like starting over.
Classic anime workaround. They love that.
Yep. She's a 5,000-year-old demon that looks 12.
But if you want to ask for her hand in marriage, Leo, everything's above the board. Aaron T writes in and says, did anyone else check the album section after getting the Purah pad? I love that it actually has the photos Zelda took of the murals during the intro. Damn it, Kelsey, don't laugh. I love that it actually has the photos Zelda took of the murals during the intro. Yet another cool, subtle touch in a game full of them.
I didn't notice that. I want to look at that.
It was nice. Also, my favorite thing about the game is that you can see the photos that Zelda took, but then the cool thing is, and we did this during the stream, but we immediately deleted all the photos. It's such a cool idea. Like, oh, that's nice. All right, delete all memories of Zelda and done. So I hope it doesn't come up at any point. Outside of 10 out of 10, does anybody want to take a guess as to what the most common comment was? Because there was, I think this is probably it. I think more people wrote in about this. And I never would have guessed it.
It wasn't just I'm a genius?
Yeah.
Maybe. This is kind of related to it loosely. It's a character people really liked.
That's not Purah?
Not Purah.
It's not Tulin.
And it's not Penn, who's secretly the coolest character, the big pelican guy who works for the Gazette.
I love Penn.
I freaking love that guy. No, Addison. People are very into Addison. Nick O says, it's the tiniest thing, but I'm loving helping Addison stand up the signs for Mr.
the sign
President.
guy.
Sign guy.
Oh, I forgot his name.
Yep, it's a super quick way to get more comfortable with Ultra Hand, help a buddy out, and collect some resources. I'm loving the game so far. Yeah, like I thought that was a cool way to help tutorialize Ultra Hand a little bit more, just like help this guy prop up the stand. But then I was like, oh, I found him like 3 or 4 times already. I wasn't expecting it to have like the rinse and repeat nature to it, but I guess it's always a fun little diversion.
It gets harder too. I don't know if you've run into, because at the beginning his signs have a little like L shape at the bottom, which makes it very easy to like, just wedge a piece of wood in there and you're good. But then eventually it becomes like just one flimsy stake and you have to construct elaborate like 4-sided things to keep it together. So, which are they feel so stupid, which I think is so fun. Like, rather than just like, here, let me hold it for you real quick, I'm like putting together, a 7-piece wooden structure to hold up a sign so that he can drive it into the ground. It's great.
It's you do it so that he can drive it into the ground and it doesn't need that thing anymore. Link could just hold it for him.
Exactly.
It's a great idea for a side quest, though. It fits so well.
Yeah. The only downside of it is, I don't know if you've run into this, but like I'll usually make the most convoluted, stupid looking contraption to hold the sign up. But then like talking to him again to collect the reward, like he needs to have a little bit of a distance from him and the resources. Like if he's too close to it, like the little prompt to talk wasn't popping up for me, but maybe I was basically half entombing him in my wooden contraptions to hold the sign up. So
I ran into that a little bit and I just had to like kind of back up and then come back to, like I had to do some shuffling around to get the prompt to pop up. I don't know. I'm finding almost zero jank in this game, which is so surprising. So every time something like that happens, I'm just like, that's fine. Like I can do a little shuffle back and forth to make a prompt pop up. It's fine.
Totally.
Muscles Meaty Beast in the Twitch chat has a good point that Addison also, he hooks you up. He gives you like 3 great things every time you help him.
Yeah, that's true. He's way better than any treasure chest, and it's kind of more fun in a lot of ways. Mason Cowell writes in and says, I love the little puzzles around Addison and President Hudson. They're the only things in the game that as soon as I see them, I make a beeline for them every time. Whisper. So this is me reading Mason Cowell's quote saying, make a beeline for him every time. I'll support you. That's what he whispers to the game every time, apparently. Steve Bellegarde says, now only if there is a way to fix that dude's haircut on the signs. Maybe that's coming later. You can use Ultra Hand or you can fuse like a different material onto, like I said. Forrest Cole says, I'm loving the game's sense of humor, from the guys supporting, quote unquote, the Hudson signs to NPCs saying they wish they could go through the ceiling rather than use a ladder. This game knows some systems like Fuse and Ascend are strange, and it revels in it. Yeah, I think that's right.
I also love how much of a celebrity Link is and how it comes up with so many people you talk to. They're like, oh, you're Link.
Right.
At the start of every conversation. I really like that.
Oh my God. My problem with that is that everyone's like, oh my God, you're Link. Oh, I'm having this problem. And then you fix it for them. And they're like, how did that happen? I'm like, you just told the hero of Hyrule that you had a problem. Like, how would you think happened?
I do love, it's basically what Leo interacting with every other human in the real world is like, where I have this thing as Link where I walk up and it's always like, are they going to recognize me? Are they going to say like, oh no, this person doesn't know who I am. Okay.
No, I feel like an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Chicken Harm writes in and says, nothing will compare to the aha moment in Breath of the Wild when you're told to go do the dueling peaks or don't. It really doesn't care what you do, but having a towering starting destination like the peaks was such a smart idea and fitted into other design choices that you explore the environment instead of chasing icons. At first, I thought Tears of the Kingdom was departing from this gameplay philosophy, but then I found my first sky tower outside of Central Town, and I was in awe after I activated it and started exploring my first set of sky islands. What's everyone's most aha moment so far? I think that's nice just to have that sky tower as like the first objective there. And like, I just kept thinking like, if I could just go back in time 20 years and just show young Zelda nerds, like, here's a clip from a Zelda game in 2023. And it's just that first sequence of Link like crawling in there and then like the Doc Arc arms like grabbing him and then launching him up. And then there's like the umbilical cord on like the Burra pad. It's like, it is the weirdest sequence ever, but I'm excited to go into those towers every time just to see that weird thing again. So I think it's
a great contraption.
Yeah.
Am I the only one who insisted on climbing that as soon as I saw it and then getting up to the top and realizing it's not turned on yet?
Oh, really?
I thought I just had to get, because I think that's how it worked in Breath of the Wild, right? You just had to get to the top of the tower.
Yeah,
I think so, yeah.
So I was just like, I'm just going to get to the top of this tower, and then nothing happened. And I was like, oh, okay, that was a waste of time.
Yeah, I think I've only done 2 of the towers so far, and the second one was the one where there's kind of like that moat around it, kind of like the water. And that was the first time where it clicked for me. I was like, okay, yeah, I know. I saw a Polygon headline that was about big bridges solve everything, but that was the first time I was like, okay, I'm actually going to try and make a giant bridge. But then I went overboard, and it was like twice as long as it needed to be. But still, that was a nice lesson. Let's see. David Dubs writes in. Oh, here we go. Saying, so I started out northwest until I ended up in the depths. I played about 15 hours in the depths and haven't spent really any time above ground. I find the gameplay loop of the darkness so much more satisfying than above ground and a more unique experience compared to Breath of the Wild. I wouldn't be surprised if I spent a majority of my time down there. Have you all done that? Did you dive into that? Ooh, okay.
No, and I only realized that, so my partner's playing it too, and I only realized that wasn't like an evil hole you're not supposed to go in, because they're going back. Like, I'm like, clearly that's a bad thing. I'm not supposed to go there, but I don't think I would have even known that existed, let alone like that it's a thing I should be doing if it hadn't been. And that's one of the things I love about this game is like, I mean, unless you're just terminally online, looking at stuff for this game, which I really try not to do. It's like just talking to other people and being like, yeah, have you gone underground yet? And you're like, there's an underground? Like, what?
It's really weird. It's like the same Elden Ring vibes of like, the underground is secretly the star of the show, everybody. Yeah.
That is the best. It's hard to navigate what kind of spoilers are experience ruining or experience enhancing, and I feel like just talking to your friends is like so much better than trying to play this game totally in isolation. And when they say something, talk about something cool, it becomes like, oh, there's this, it may as well have been mentioned by an NPC in the game. It's just like kind of pointing me towards a cool thing to do.
Yeah I think I just went there because I found it originally and I was like, okay, the gloom is everywhere, so I guess I'll stay away. But then they point you there a little bit, where it's like, all right, go northwest more or less. But then at the same time you get another objective if you talk to Robbie. And he's like, hey, I'll show you how to use that camera. Come meet me out there. And then he's already down there. So they try and guide you down there. But that was one of those things where I went down there and I think I only had 3 hearts at the time. And I was messing around for a while. I was like, okay, I'm making some progress. I'm slowly tracking through this whole underground area. And then I started to realize, like, I think this is secretly one of those areas that's just going to go on for nearly forever. This could be like a 40-hour experience. So I'm glad I bailed at that point to go keep exploring above ground.
Yeah, it feels like, and like the criticism of, oh, you know, it's kind of the same map or whatever, so it's not really that big of a game. It's like, yeah, but then you layer on the entire sky level, and it seems like you certainly layer on an entire depths level, and it's like 3 times as big. Yeah, I went down there. I didn't find Robbie down there. I don't know where he is down there.
Oh.
But I did a little exploring. Well, I don't know if I went down the same hole either.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah. But yeah, it's such a different kind of tone and vibe down there that it was. I left pretty early and was like, but I'm looking forward to going back. It did very much. It felt like the same kind of vibe of Elden Ring as well.
Yep.
Not only same concept, but same like mystical, weird underground that you can't even tell you're underground anymore and what's going on down here.
Yep, for sure.
That was a very cool surprise.
Ryan says, potential mild spoiler for the underground exploration. So everyone, you can tune out if you care about this. I don't think it's too bad. But he says, an NPC mentioned this, but I think it's interesting that the light roots you activate underground correspond to the location of a shrine above ground. Also, it's a nice touch. I noticed from that the names of each pair are reversed from each other. So it's like a weird dark world as you connect all those. Has anybody found the, you like give the fruit to the tree and then those beacons show up? Leo, have you done that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that just showing you cave entrances? Is that the idea?
Yeah, with maybe the frogs that give you the good resource in them.
Okay. All right. That might be the connecting thing there. But let's see. You want to talk gameplay? You want to talk combat? Leo, how you feeling?
Can we just talk about those frogs? Are you...
Yeah, we can talk frogs.
I hit one of them, and then it didn't attack me, and I felt really bad, so I didn't do anything else. But are you supposed to murder them?
I think so.
The glowing frog things?
The big guys.
Yeah, the ones that shoot bubbles at you.
Bulbasaurs?
Yep. Not the glooms, but the Bulbasaurs, yeah.
I mean, so you get like gems from them, and then there's like an NPC that hints that someone is looking for those gems, but I have not found whoever that person is yet.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the big, I had that same experience.
Kyle is telling me to murder all of them in the comments.
Right. I love that they're very easy to murder too. Also, I really like in the caves too, the horoblins, is that what they're called? The guys on the ceiling. And then you attack them and they fall, and everyone just like hurts their butt really bad when they fall. And it seems like this devastating move, and I love that stupid animation from. Let's see. Patrick G says, caves having a check mark after clearing them is great. Also, there are a lot of them. I have no idea what the light frogs collectible does yet, but I'm happy getting them. The game still rewards aimless exploring. If you're into cave exploration, seek out a cherry blossom tree. Okay, so that must be like the beacon thing that we found, Leo, I think.
Right.
Let's see. We have, we have some thoughts. Ricky Winterborn says it's so rough when you take 10 minutes to build something, then fire it up, forgetting that you're not standing on it and it rockets away without you. True, but then recall is right there. And Porn Curly points out something that I'm so thankful for as well, where they say, I appreciate the range on recall. It's a handy little tool to bring back runaway Ultra Hand contraptions when things go afoul.
Yeah, so the fact it pauses time too, so it's easy to grab them, really well designed. Yep,
and then also just the smart idea of like making everything else kind of like sepia toned or like discolored except for the object that's moving. It's like everything is so smart. Let's see. Tanner Methvin says, I'm looking online, that's your first mistake, and I'm seeing people make fully functioning Gundams. Meanwhile, my raft is sailing away because I forgot to be standing on it when I turned the fan on. Are you all feeling construction envy? I haven't yet, just because I haven't looked online enough. I think after this first episode of The Deepest Dive, I'll probably start diving in to see what the subreddit's doing. But I kind of wanted to be pure for this. So is anyone feeling envy?
I feel like if I really wanted to build something like I'm seeing, I could and would. But it's like, I want to build the type of stuff I want to make.
Yeah, man.
And I'm secure in that.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm trying to save looking at all of that stuff for when I don't know, just spent a lot more time and have built a lot more cool things. Like I want to feel like I have at least kind of creatively exhausted myself before I start like looking for inspiration, because then I think then I'm just going to be like thinking about things other people have done rather than coming up with my own solutions.
Right, right. Nick S says, anyone else get frustrated at how short the range is on the Ultra Hand ability? Other than that, the game feels even better than Breath of the Wild. Yeah, I noticed that, but I think the range on Recall made up for it. We're like, that's really what I want to have a stupid range for, I think.
Yeah, I only get frustrated with the range of the Ultra Hand when I'm trying to like cheese something that I'm clearly not supposed to do.
Yeah,
Right.
which I think is the point of it.
Yeah.
Just like, otherwise you could just grab whatever you need wherever you're going and you wouldn't have a puzzle to overcome.
That's right.
It's true.
Has anyone else used Ultra Hand much in combat? Like I was fighting some big skeleton guys and I picked up a tree and dropped it on their head and it was like, all right, this is cool and handy. I should probably use it more.
Nice.
I've done a little bit of that, and you can also, like, a fun thing I found is pick up a rock, walk it in a circle a few times, and then use recall, and it'll just go back and hit like, if the monster's coming towards you,
Sure.
he'll walk into the path of the recall, which is very fun.
I saw someone beat a boss that way
Oh, awesome.
with a giant combination of rocks and boulders and stuff. The one use I've done of Ultra Hand in combat was in traversing between Sky Islands. There was a sentry enemy on a platform, and I snuck up to him and strapped a rocket to the platform and just shot him out of the play space, so he wasn't a problem.
Amazing.
Nice.
Has anybody done the recall with the little, I want to call them asteroids, but just the blocks coming down? I only did that for one island, but it was fun as hell.
Yeah,
I did that.
The first time I did that, I felt very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
didn't
did that
think of it, but a
once.
friend told me it blew me away. So
I did that once, and then I did it on another rock that just kind of, it was already there, and it lit up, and when I rode it up, I only got like halfway, and then it just started dropping me back down to the ground. So I wonder if it's like a timing aspect of it was just there too long, and so my
Interesting.
rewind didn't rewind it enough, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, did you see it
That's-
fall?
Did I what?
Did you see it fall?
No, it was.
Oh.
It just lit up in the area that I was. I mean, it could have fallen, and I was just, distracted by some flying bug that I was trying to catch or something stupid. I don't know.
Sure.
They could work differently, but it is crazy how it is just recorded movement. Like the fact it works on anything, that they're recording the movement of every object in the game so
Yeah.
that it can retrace it backwards. That's like one of those things I didn't realize we could do technically, but it's so creative to do.
There's a lot of stuff in this game where it's like, man, this game feels like it needs something more powerful than the Switch to run. Like technically I'm happy with it. It's running pretty well. There's some frame drops every now and again, but that is the wild thing. It's just like with a game with nothing but draw distance and so many just huge areas, and yeah, that idea of recall all these things. It's like it is stunning that the Switch can run it. Period. It feels like something that would need a wild next gen machine to handle. But Justin R writes in and says, so far I find the Ultra Hand ability cumbersome. Having to repeatedly put rafts together in the tutorial got a bit boring. I'm curious to see how my impressions on this ability evolve as I play the game. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I liked making a big old cart at first, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this over and over again. But I think there might be something coming up that helps with that in a way. By the way, how cool is it that you get all those abilities right away? I feel like any other game would trickle these out, but it's like, I don't know, here's the big four or whatever, have at it. It's such
I don't
a cool
think I'd
idea.
be having nearly as much fun if it didn't give you all of those pretty immediately. Like I feel like that's necessary. Like it's not even that it's nice, it's like necessary for this being this good of a game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They complement each other so well. You
Yeah.
use them in cooperation with each other, yeah.
I was thinking too, like if just the fuse ability was not in this game, would the Metacritic be one score different? I feel like fuse is the one I think about the least.
Yeah, I mean, but it's so interesting for combat, and maybe
I guess so.
Maybe we just haven't spent as much time in combat, but the ability to change all of your arrows so much, and
Yeah,
also
that
it
is
makes
it.
the weapons way less of a pain in the ass if you're like even just it may not be like the most exciting thing, but just having a rock on a sword so that it lasts, 30 hits longer than it would have otherwise is I think that would affect it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the menus so much doing that stuff during combat that it feels like it's turn-based sometimes.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
But I think it's fair to say that there's so much else going on that if it was like, but the combat's just Breath of the Wild again, that would be probably fine.
Yeah. Yeah. You're probably right. I do love that weird premise too of like, yeah, when the upheaval happened, like all the weapons just started decaying. Nothing we can do about it. It's a cool, weird, abstract idea. It's like, everything's rusty, whatever.
Good, enemy boss strategy to just like decay all the weapons. Now what are you going to do?
Come at me now, please. So you think Ganondorf did that? I didn't even think about that.
That was my take on it.
That's smarter.
Or at least it would be a cool lore thing for an enemy of just like, we don't think about it. It wouldn't make sense in modern times, but the idea, like when they told me that was what was happening, was like, oh yeah, I guess if like all you have are swords at your disposal, if something just ate all the swords, you'd be like helpless at that point.
Yeah, unless you can attach some sort of hoe to a torch,
That's
then
right.
we're in trouble.
Then you're screwed. Yeah.
It's not just there's normal enemies that are using fused weapons, right? Are they just doing it an old-fashioned way? Are they just like taping these things together?
Or they found them.
Okay, because it's like
Some stuff is fused before you get there.
Yeah, it's weird. By the way, small little thing before I forget. I love just the stupid feeling of with Ultra Hand, when something's attached, just like the right stick wiggle to detach it. Always delightful. Just doing the little shimmy to get it to detach. Case
I've
Mulder.
been shaking the Joy-Con.
Oh, okay. That works too?
That works too.
Nice.
Oh, it's like motion controlled too?
Yep.
Huh.
Oh. I'm going to try that. That might feel even better.
Case Mulder writes in and says, smallest thing ever, but I appreciate that they made the directions for the abilities make sense on the dial. So Ascend goes up, Recall turns the clock back, so it's to the left, Ultra Hand picks up with the right hand, and Fuse picks up from the ground, so that's down.
That does make more sense than I gave it credit for at the start of that question.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, Ascend for sure. Like that one.
Yeah.
That one always
that's the big
snaps
one.
immediately for me. It's like, yes, I'm going up because I'm going up. The rest of them, those all make sense, but I don't think they're quite as intuitive as Ascend is.
Yeah. Bob K says, I just landed on the ground, so there's still a lot to explore, but I'm so intrigued by the seemingly endless possibilities of the fuse mechanic. I added a mushroom to my sword and sent enemies flying. There we go. I attached a flamethrower to my shield and burned enemies while keeping myself warm in the snowy mountains. I hadn't thought about that. Of course I should use that to keep myself warm. I'm also excited that I won't be bogged down with two-handed weapons like I felt in Breath of the Wild. What have been your favorite fuse attachment so far? I think we kind of covered that one already. And then he says, also be
I
sure
love putting a bokoblin skeleton arm, on the end of like a spear or something. It looks so funny dangling off the end. It's great.
Bob says, also be sure to change the menu sorting options to most used. It seems to make the fusing a lot less cumbersome. That's smart, especially for like hot, picking up for arrows and stuff like that.
I wish there were more sorting options. It is so many things, which is great, but it's hard to find the thing you want sometimes.
Yeah.
Most used.
Joshua Caleb says, fusing arrows and weapons is really cool, but man, is the combat still stiff and awkward. My Korok seeds for a dedicated dodge button that isn't tied to the lock-on. I've been blindsided so many times because I know there's an enemy behind me and I can't swing the camera around fast enough to put my shield up or jump out of the way. Just let me blind roll, please, Nintendo.
Yeah, I do wish there was a little bit more of a dodge ability that like you didn't have to be just staring the enemy straight in the face. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think for a lot of this stuff, and I'm definitely getting used to the controls and stuff now, but I think with combat and just controls and everything and UI, I just keep thinking about like, is there a better way to do this? Is it just, this is a really complicated game and the controller's kind of brimming at the seams to do everything you need it to do? Like, I don't know, this would be, I don't think it's a realistic feature, but I would love to make a feature that's just like bringing in other UI designers from other games or other like combat designers. Like, how would you overhaul Tears of the Kingdom? Is there any way to map this to a controller better? Because I know that it's complicated, but it does feel just a little clunky here and there.
Yeah, I wish you could, because you press up to look at your materials whenever and drop them, and I wish you could put them into your arms like holding them from there. Is there any way to do that besides being in the pause menu?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
Yeah.
That feels odd to me. I wish you could like hold A on something on the ground to just like put it in hold mode.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But it's just button real estate again. But that's true. Yeah. Because even just cooking, it's like, oh, I forgot how much. It's just kind of like, all right, hold this, then hold this, and hold this, and hold this, hold this, hold this.
Yeah.
Joe Dean says, for the controls, crouch should be X, sprint should be left thumbstick, and jump should be B. I have swapped sprint and jump, but better control customization would be greatly welcomed. Yeah. Dumb question. I don't even know where the menu is to adjust things like this. It's not plus and it's not minus, and I'm all out of ideas.
I assume
Plus
it's
and in settings.
Oh,
It's
that
in
makes
plus
sense.
all the way to the right.
and it's all the way over to the
Jeff, it's plus and it's all the way to the right. Come on, don't be a dingus. It's right in there.
to the gear.
Adrian T says, menu improvements, in my opinion. Dropping items quickly from the D-pad or when presented with a new weapon to pick up. Also, tabbing with the bumpers instead of the right stick like in Breath of the Wild is much more intuitive and quicker.
Oh yeah.
Menu gripes, seems like a sad oversight. You can't quickly eat from holding the D-pad inventory button. Also, the fact that I still can't sell or buy multiple items at once is painful to me. So much clicking through repeated dialogue just to sell a few items. Yeah, we've played Animal Crossing, so we know this pain very well. It's no big deal. Ryan D says, I'm having a hard time getting used to the controls. You have to hold multiple buttons down to manipulate objects with Ultra Hand, and the cancel actions differ depending on your situation. I've died a few times accidentally by pressing the dive instead of glide while falling. It doesn't help that I'm switching from an Xbox controller to the Switch, so the A, B, X, Y thing is all jumbled. Good luck, everybody. We'll all get there eventually.
It's a little tricky, and things like, quick switching which bow you're using, you have to have the bow out in order to turn the sword icon into the bow icon. But like, you can see the sense of it after you figured it out and done it a couple times. The same thing with like, if you want to throw an item, you have to pretend you're going to throw your melee weapon and then, switch like all of that there is a layer of, of like, it's a little finicky, but it makes sense enough that I think we just have to get the muscle memory for it.
Yeah.
Also, there's no shame in just going into the pause menu sometimes to do stuff.
Yeah.
You can do pretty much everything from there. And there are times where I'm just like, my brain's not making those connections fast enough. It's just like, screw it. I will change my weapon by pressing the plus button and doing it there.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there are some kind of weird choices. The first one that I noticed was you run with B, I think, right? Like holding down B, but to dash in the water is X. And I'm like, why would you not make those the same? Like it's the go fast button. Why would you not make a consistent go faster button? So there's a couple little things like that I feel like are. But I mean, I'm not a game designer. Maybe they tried that and it was even worse, and I have no idea. It just feels wrong to me.
But also it's a situation where, they've spent over a decade now working on Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So I'm sure all the control decisions they made early on in Breath of the Wild, it's like, well, that's just locked in. It's probably tough to get out of that rut for revamping it. Chris M says, I gasped in glee when I ran into my first like in the caves of the tutorial Sky Island. Since then, I've run into a few more classic and new Zelda creatures, and I'm so happy to see that Nintendo took this criticism to heart. Has anyone let a like eat them yet to see if they steal your shield, as they did in the rest of the series? No, these are the big worms in the caves. I love fighting those silly things, though. I think they're really fun. And they got those treasure chests sitting there after the fact. It's always fun. Forrest with 2 R's says, I fell down in an innocuous well and I ended up in Zelda's equivalent to hell. It's scarier than anything in Elden Ring. Does anyone know what they're talking about? Yeah,
I don't. Do the wells just go to the depths, or is it?
I don't know.
Some other
they're different.
well?
I've only been in one well, and it was its distinct own little zone.
Yeah, same.
Yep. Chaz Cheeto says, my favorite weirdo/obscure NPC so far is Farah. I've played the intro twice, and I believe you always meet her at the bottom of your 5th discovered well, which will obviously vary for each person. She's a freak for wells and somehow knows there are exactly 58 in all of Hyrule. She tasks you with reporting to her the location of all of them, paying 10 rupees each. And then, quote, hey, you wouldn't happen to be a well enthusiast, would you? A little presumptuous if you ask me, but spot on, says Chaz Cheeto. I guess we're all well enthusiasts now. Yeah, I definitely found there's a well with like a note in it, and maybe it was from her, but she wasn't in there quite yet.
Have you guys run into the fashion hunter people? I forget what they call themselves, but there was a lady I ran into randomly on a path who's dressed very strangely, and she's like, "Oh, are you into fashion? Here's the location of some fashion treasures." And I haven't found any of them yet. My guess is they are in like one of them. I went to the exact spot on the map, and I was just like, I don't see how this could, maybe it's in the depths below this part of the map or something like that, but. Or in an island above, but apparently it's like good gear that they mark on the map for you, and is like a treasure hunt of some sort. I just thought that was a fun random chance encounter.
Yeah, it's cool. I don't think I've seen them yet. Malcolm H says, I feel like the game has a nice guiding hand as you travel to Rito Village. The landing has a bunch of side quests to get you started, lore, and the goings-on with the rest of the world. I'm particularly interested in the pirates in Laurelin Village. Then you come across the geoglyph, which explains how the main story/plot will unfold. Then in Rito Village, the main shopkeeper explains how to get money by exploring caves, which you'll end up doing if you don't want to constantly make hot food in the first dungeon so you can buy the Rito clothes. Everything felt intentional but open. Okay, hang on, let me slow down. So I need to go in caves to get the money to buy Rito clothes?
Well, I think you get a lot of like materials in caves and stuff, and then also, I mean, caves have been where I've been finding gear. I have a really cool headdress I found that increases like fire attack.
Okay.
And that was just in a random cave, and I think that's like if you go into a random cave, there's usually something actually cool in the chest that's in there, as opposed to other treasure chests throughout the game.
Okay, sweet.
But yeah, I mean, like there's always like mineral deposits there. Like you're always going to be getting some opals or topaz or like something like that.
Right. Yarrow says, the emergent stories I'm having are why I adore this game. I plan to buy the tunic from Rito Village to get the full cold resist to make the trek to the Northwest phenomenon easier, but I had to have 500 rupees. I began by hunting to make meals to sell, but on my way, I ran into Ornest and Tebalt, just west of Tabitha Great Bridge. From them, I had a fun mini-game of recalling stones the Goron was throwing to land them in a basket. After finishing, I was rewarded with 100 rupees. Doing this a few times, I was able to afford my tunic and began making my way up the snowy mountain. That's wonderful. I can't wait to experience all that. Gladont says, in regards to the Frozen Rito Village theme, massive respect to the Legends of Zelda composers for turning the very tropical/ocean-themed Dragon Roost Island track into a haunting melody for a frozen mountain village. It's one of my favorite tracks so far in the game. I was so excited when I read that comment. I'm like, I haven't heard that music yet, and I want to hear their sad version of Dragon Roost. That sounds great. Luca A says, I was going northwest when I stumbled upon a French horn player who got stuck with his cart inside a crater. The scene of this guy playing his horn while I turned his vehicle into a flying machine had me grinning and chuckling as I failed takeoff numerous times. Later on, I was amazed to find the same horn player as a member of a marching band at a stable with another quest. I won't spoil it. It is commendable how naturally one quest flows into the other so far here. Great point.
Yeah.
Sonny Johnson says, I would highly recommend checking out the first glyph/dragon tier on your way northwest. But be warned, once you start those tiers memories, you may not want to stop until you've covered them all or found them all. I haven't found that yet. Jeff, have you? I would like to see our heat maps, Jeff. We might be in the exact same spot, the exact same path there.
Maybe.
It is good and important.
It's important.
Are those like the giant, stone pictures that you can see when you're like falling through the air, or is that something completely different?
Yeah, it's like you'll see like a big sword or a big castle or something like that on the like carved into the ground, basically. And
are you just supposed to go there to do that thing, or?
So I've only done one of them, and it's that first one, and I actually happened on it kind of on accident. Like I did the thing where you go up in the hot air balloon and you see it for the first time. But then I was just kind of ignoring that, and going past it on my horse, I just saw a little like weird circle of water on the ground, and I was like, what is this? And then and then it was that. It was a dragon tear, and it showed me a memory. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
Oh.
That's
So
cool.
I think you have to. I assume you just have to find that. You have to find like the little water circle on each of these.
Okay.
Yeah, which you can see from above easier, and then
Oh,
seek it
okay.
out.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
I was also plummeting to my death at the time, so I wasn't
Right.
really
It's tough to remember.
zooming in to figure out what the heck was going on.
Gavin C. writes it over on Patreon and says, I love how all the Rito children are running the shops while the adults are away investigating the phenomenon or scavenging for food. That is nice. Michael Stevens says, Tulin is an adorable little champ. I loved exploring the Hebrew Mountains with my little bird buddy, and his gust ability is super fun and practical. Why then is Avatar Tulin so creepy? Why give him cold, dead eyes and get rid of his cute little vocal efforts? He has scared the hell out of me a few times, popping up in front of me while I've been spelunking through some cave systems.
That is one of those gameplay things where they're like, here's this free new ability that'll help you out all the time. And I go into the menu and I dismiss it because I do not want a little ghoul following me around everywhere. That will impact my experience.
I love my little ghost bird. I love him.
That's exactly up your alley. If you had to design a Kelsey character in a lab, it's a ghost bird. Let's see. Felix writes in and says, when Tulin sees Zelda in the Wind Temple, why doesn't Link react to her appearance? Is Tulin hallucinating this? Link appears to be there like us, another spectator.
He doesn't react to anything.
He's
Like-
hard.
He really doesn't. I mean, we were just talking about the opening sequence. Like,
Right.
he doesn't emote like at all. He's just like, oh, I guess I should try to stop this horrible thing. Oh, my Master Sword's gone and now Zelda's falling and I guess I'm starting this adventure. I don't know.
I feel like a lot of people are surprisingly cool about like, what's that? You saw some spectral version of Zelda fly into the sky? All right, well, what are you going to do? Even like early on in that town area. But I guess in a world like this, it's not the weirdest thing you could possibly encounter is a weird ghost Zelda.
Hanson, would you prefer a mod for this game where every time Link skydives, he's screaming in fear?
I would like that. Is that an option? Is that available? I'll buy it.
Yeah, I'll get to work.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. Malcolm H says, the chest puzzle with the icicle in the dungeon was awesome. It made me laugh when I figured out the solution, and I just adore the creativity of using the environment. How was the dungeon? I'm looking forward to doing it, but Kelsey and Leo, how is it?
I struggled a little bit because there's not all of the to make this kind of vague, not all the entrances to the areas you need to go to there are like at least for me, like I did not see
Agreed.
where I was supposed to go very easily. So it definitely took me a while, but the fight at the end of it was pretty cool. Like,
Okay.
I was annoyed at it at first, and I thought it was going to be way too hard because it involves a lot of gliding and like arrows and that sort of thing. And again, as someone who's just not that good at video games, I was like, they expect me to do what now? Like, there's no way I'm going to have the dexterity for this. But I did, and I got through it, and I thought it was a cool fight.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't bemoan the lack of dungeons in Breath of the Wild, but I did find myself really enjoying this one. It's like a shrine-style puzzles, but kind of interlocking in a larger area. And there's a little bit of consulting the map to see what you're missing, but it's not like you're in and out of the map the whole time. And it's kind of feels like a mega shrine and then a combat thing at the end, and that was really satisfying.
Nice.
I think my only it's not even really a complaint, it's just I would have done this differently, is like, like I was mentioning earlier, the trek to this dungeon was just, it was very long. And so by the time I got there, I was like, now I have to do an entire temple? Are you kidding me?
Sure.
Like, I wish there had been like something, and to be fair, you can fast travel to it. So like, I could have just been like, screw it, I'm coming back later. But like, it definitely felt like, I mean, I was doing the, lead up to the Wind Temple and then the Wind Temple for several hours. And that felt like a lot.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no easy way to like teleport away from it because there's no fast travel point to get back there?
I think not until you get to the actual temple. There might have been a shrine on the way.
Yeah, there's
I
one
forget.
shrine on the way, but there
Okay.
should have been more. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there is one fast travel point like somewhere in your journey up to the Wind Temple, but it definitely just it never felt like this is a good stopping point. I can come back
Sure.
to this. It was like I just need to keep going or I'm not going to know what I'm doing anymore. Like I need to heads down, get through the Wind Temple. And yeah, it was. I found myself getting a little frustrated with the actual temple part, but I really think that's just because that part is. It's a little different than the shrines because it doesn't feel like you can be quite as creative with it. Like there's definitely solutions to each of the puzzles, or at least I felt like they were more one solution to all of the puzzles. So I didn't like it as much. I mean, that's really all it comes down to is I just struggled with it more because I couldn't really cheese anything. You had to just kind of do it right, which I think is way more traditional Zelda and, you know, something that I think a lot of people would enjoy, but it's not my favorite.
Yeah, I think there was some flexibility still, but definitely a lot more rigid than the main shrines, etc.
Micah Tillman writes in, they said, did the Sky Temple boat thing's cannons fire at anyone? I didn't even notice them till I was already on board.
Only if you get outside of, there's like platforms kind of on the outside of the boat. And yeah, I was confused at that first because I was like, there's clearly cannons here. They're firing at something, but they're like nowhere near me. Like, is this supposed to be intimidating to me? And then I made it out to one of the sort of like auxiliary little floating things outside of the boat. And then they start shooting at you and you're like, okay.
Gotcha.
So don't go out there because they'll shoot at you.
Tommy O says, it's a really nice touch that the music evolved after every lock in the dungeon. Also, on the topic of music, I love that Link hums old Zelda tunes as he cooks. That is cute. That is nice. The first time I heard it, I was like, wait a minute, is he singing the main theme for Zelda as he's cooking? That's a nice way to humanize him a little bit. Just a little bit. Rich Carrasco says, for the first couple hours of the game, I thought this was quite similar to Breath of the Wild, and I was a bit underwhelmed. Then it turned a corner going northwest, and a tree was walking towards me and slammed me with its branches. I thought I had taken acid. 10 out of 10. Swiggity's Tweet says, I went to chop down a tree, and it came alive and started attacking me. Best game of all time. And then
I love that trees require... I'm sorry, you're going for a Rule of Threes thing and I interrupted.
Actually, I thought I was, but I'm not actually. I read wrong. So yes, what's your thought?
Trees.
There you go.
I love that the trees are weak to tree things. Like you have to hit them with an axe or set them on fire. Something.
Right,
just a sword
right.
doesn't do anything at all.
I love it just as a big Wizard of Oz fan. Like the first time I encountered them was in that apple orchard. So it was like perfectly Wizard of Oz, like collecting apples. And I was like, wait a minute, these trees are alive. They don't like me collecting their apples, I guess. So
that's our eyes.
Everyone knows apples are trees. Right? What's the deal with you need an axe to hurt them? I'm always confused about like what weapons can take a tree down and which can't. Even like outside of enemy trees, just normal trees, like certain weapons can't take a tree down, or they all can?
Some of them were just bouncing off. I've only fought one tree and I needed to use an axe to do it.
Okay.
I just set them all on fire. I've never done anything but set a tree on fire. That feels like the most logical way to take down a tree that's attacking you.
And
That's what I would do, yeah.
I've never been attacked by a tree, and I feel like I've chopped a lot of trees down. Am I just missing?
Maybe you made them go extinct.
Trees?
Did you just take out every tree before they had the chance to come alive?
Yeah, you're one-shotting them.
I cut all the breeding ones. So.
Kurgles says, I glued 2 skeleton arms together and I used it to kill a giant rockworm. Best game of all time. Yep, that's right, Kurgles. That's right. Shh, shh, shh. Let's see. Jason Wojnar says, putting a Korok on a piece of wood to jettison it over a gap on an island in the sky was magical. People are still experimenting with Koroks. There's going to be a lot more to come. Let's see. Oh boy, I'll tell you what. Ben B writes in, I was doing the Geoglyphs hot air balloon ride when the first blood moon happened. I didn't realize it was the blood moon at first and was preparing myself for some sort of epic hot air balloon battle. Yeah, that blood moon thing was jarring. Zelda definitely sounds terrifying during that. And also just like super compressed video is jarring, but it's scary.
Oh, she's so weird. She's just standing out in the middle of the field, like speaking cryptically about monsters coming back to the flesh or something. I'm like, what, lady, you need hobbies. Like, what? This is weird.
Yeah, it is bizarre.
This applies to Breath of the Wild too, but can anyone explain the like point of blood moons? Because I feel like every time a blood moon happens, they happen so often that I'm like, I've never been back somewhere I killed all the moblins. This doesn't change anything.
I think you will be, like, if you're just kind of like I'm in an area in the Northeast where there's like several camps of them, and some of them drop, there's some of the like bigger boss ones that drop better things, and so I've been thankful when it's like, oh, I can go back there and like farm those again if I need to. So I don't think it makes as much difference for just like, 3 regular bokoblins standing out in a field or whatever, but like there are some areas where it's like you'll remember that this is an area that has a lot of strong ones or something, and maybe want to come back to it.
Sure. I was thinking, I guess, that it happens so often it may as well just have them come back the next time you're there. But what you said about
fair.
the boss resources, I think, makes it make more sense as a balancing thing.
Randall Sparks says, I had an unexpectedly emotional moment when I brought my horse over from Breath of the Wild. I named my main horse after my cat at the time, Sid, who passed away between when I played that game and now. So it was bittersweet riding him again. That's beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah, that is a really nice touch where it's like, oh yeah, Reckles the horse. I forgot about you. You're sitting in the stable waiting for me. Sure.
If anything, it highlighted for me how little I used horses in Breath of the Wild. I was excited about that, and I was like, oh, can't wait to see what crazy stuff I played a ton of this game. Can't wait to see my cool horses. And I was like, I have a couple of okay horses. Like, I guess I just didn't use them that much.
I'm totally with you. Yeah, it's even in this game, like I used it for a little bit and I was like, that's fine. I feel like there's still so much to find on foot that like, I don't really mind just running around.
Yeah, I get off it so much.
Yeah.
That it's tough to keep it near you.
Jonathan Hale writes in, anyone else freaking out without the hero's path mechanic in the map? I played Breath of the Wild for the first time last year and quickly had the urge to literally walk all over every part of the map by covering it with that green line, but it's not in this game. Or at least I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm running around here blind. I have no idea what I have and haven't walked over. Not chill, Nintendo. Yeah, that was like the first DLC, right? That added that the hero's path thing to Breath of the Wild. So I would imagine you'd get it later in this game, but I really don't know. Keegan Mobley says, my favorite thing so far are all the little sounds Nintendo put in, like the pitter-patter of rain on Link's glider when you use it in the rain, or how during the cutscene where Link enters a shrine, you hear his footsteps on stone except for the last step, which is on sand and makes a different soft crunch. I can't wait to hear what other little things they have in store as I go throughout the game. That's very nice.
Sound design in this game is really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like the music in the shrines, people are writing in about how much they love that. And just like the soundscape and just, let's see. Someone wrote in about the lack of like overworld music. Yeah, Jared N says, I miss overworld music. It's there. I do it's amazing, I think, for like the tone this game sets, that I think the music is a big part of it in the overworld, of just kind of the light twinkling piano. But like they could have gone a more darker post-apocalyptic vibe. It's kind of like a semi-ruined world. I feel like this game, looking at it from any other angle, you could have made it kind of like the dark sequel, but I don't think it really feels like that so far. Like it is a weird, kind of depressing world, but somehow it doesn't feel like that to be in. You know what I'm talking about?
I feel that for sure. There's plenty of, beauty in it.
Yeah, it's just the trees are all yellow now. That's the main difference.
And some of them bite you.
That's right. Diesel,
still, I mean, it's still Hyrule, and like the people, as like terrible as everything is, like everybody's still upbeat and like happy when they see Link and stuff. And I feel like that has always been one of the draws of, like, when everyone talks about how great Breath of the Wild is, I think part of that is just, compared to a lot of open world games, this is a world that is just really fun and kind of cozy, and you want to spend time in it. And I'm sure they didn't want to stray from that too much.
Yeah.
Go grimdark or whatever.
Diesel What says, has anyone run into the hands yet? That was freaky.
Yes.
Oh.
They're terrifying.
Yeah.
Are these the ones, I've run into like gloom stuff underground where there's like 4 hands. Is that what that means?
Yeah, and if you get close enough to it, they start getting handsy.
Okay. And it'll bring your health down in that gloomy kind of way. I guess I just stayed away from enough where I wasn't too horrified, but it was a cool thing to encounter. Yeah, just in some cave down there. Kelsey, big things we haven't hit that you definitely want to hit?
I don't know. I feel like we've kind of talked around all of the big things. I mean, I guess my only question is, what are we doing next? Because I feel like from the northwest, the game kind of pushes you to the northeast.
Yep.
But so I've started kind of heading that way in my playthrough. But I don't know. We've talked about all of the major points here. Like, I think we could just go forever listening to people's like weird things they've built, and I'm down for that. Like, I'm down for more stupid solutions people have come up with for things.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's safe to say we're all very happy with this game so far. Like, we're having a good time, and this is going to be a very fun continued Deepest Dive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be covering the Northeast next episode. So if you've been watching this, you can support us on Patreon at any tier, not only to unlock the podcast version of this and help support independent games media, but then also you get access to the Discord where the real heart of this discussion's happening. But then also you can submit your comment for us to read about roughly the northeast part of the map, but you've heard this discussion, you probably have a rough idea of we're not going to be the most strict in the world because there's still going to be 1,000 things to unpack. There's still a lot of community questions and comments here that I'd love to get to. Kelsey, I know you're tight on time. Do you want to bow out at this point?
Yeah, I'll get out of here and probably keep this on in the background and not pay attention to my next meeting. So.
Okay, cool. Come back whenever. All right, thanks, Kelsey.
Bye.
Dirty E writes in over on Patreon, says, this game is amazing. We haven't had that comment yet. However, it's one of the first games that I feel like is a huge waste of time. Nothing hurts more than spending 20 plus minutes trying to get a treasure chest only to open it to find it contains one opal. Come on. Do you see that people are making full working battle? What?
I'd kill for an opal.
Please.
Opals are fine. Give me opals all day.
And then Dirty
Those contribute towards something. A old crappy bow I could maybe fuse to make a horrible weapon.
But Dirty E says, yeah, anybody see that they're making full battle, like working battle mechs in the game? I haven't seen that yet. But that
There's
does
some
sound
cool ones with
Really?
distinct different weapons.
Oh,
I also see
my
people
God.
with more batteries, like extra battery capacity. And I'm wondering when we get that, what you do to get that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the first robots you talked to was like you can turn in the crystallized zonite or whatever, and so I was like, well, I have 3. How many does it need? He was like, you need 100. I was like, I will see you 50 hours from now, my friend.
Yep. Anthony says, I noticed Tears of the Kingdom is tracking less quests than Breath of the Wild. I've met 2 people who have told me read information about an area or a quest that hasn't been tracked, most notably the information about the Great Ferry in the Northwest. Oh. The music troupe moving east and the monster hunting squads in Lookout Landing. I wish there was a document system for all these hints. I did notice that the stable and Lookout Landing seem to be good places to go for starting quests. Also, with the exception of the main quest, quests don't give you a marker of where to go, but who gave you the quest. Leo, give me something smart to say about that.
That's good.
That's good.
Some games, will be like, do you want exploration mode or guided mode? Put them in exploration mode. They don't know what they want. That's my tip to game developers.
There we go. Brian Stanley writes in and says, every time a new sky island is within reach after being blasted into the stratosphere, I cannot help but forget the quest I was on and go explore. Working my way from one floating puzzle to the next is some of the most fun I've had so far. A seagull once flew in front of a launching piston and got obliterated. After running out of golden islands, I dive towards a sprawling Hyrule to scope out intriguing landmarks to glide in real time. Tears of the Kingdom is everything Skyward Sword pretended to be. That is...
Go off.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. It's interesting even in the Nintendo interview with the developers, that's kind of their take is like, I directed Skyward Sword and I always felt like there's unfinished business there. So the idea of them coming back around to be like, oh no, here's us just blowing it out in a big way. I'm always excited to go to the Sky Islands. I haven't really gone up there again too much. And I feel like part of that's just like not having the rocket. I feel like without the rocket, like how much can I really jump from one to the other, It's like
There are ways.
Oh?
They bake in ways, but it is interesting because you get up there and it's like, okay, I can do this one and maybe get to the shrine on that one and then to that one, but that's kind of a dead end and now I go back down. It's like you're not meant to spend the whole game up there at once.
Okay.
And I love that about it. It's so fun, like trying to plot your path through the Sky Islands.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive in a big way there. Let's see. Skylands, sorry. Matt Thomas says, Link drips for far too long after he gets out of water.
Yep.
Step in water in a shrine, he's still wet 2 puzzles later. Step in water outside, he's still wet during an entire NPC interaction. Did someone complain that he dried too quickly in Breath of the Wild? Why is he like this now?
I thought it was bugged. I thought it was always wet.
Oh, interesting.
Or wet for a
I don't know. Maybe they're trying to be more realistic. I mean, it's cool. Show it off, I guess. Thwip says, hey, would this game be better without combat? I love the exploration of the puzzles, but every time an enemy shows up, it's more of a nuisance and not something I have fun engaging with. Interesting. I think it needs it.
That.
You feel it? I get where you're coming from, but I think it just, they're so easy by and large to dodge, like the combat encounters, that it just feels like, oh, here's another place to use your toys if you want, is kind of how I feel about that.
Yeah. Like, ultimately, the combat still boils down to you're going to whack something with a stick, until it dies. But at least this time around, it feels like, okay, I don't just have to do that. It is an excuse to goof around and, figure out new combinations and stuff like that. So I'm glad that it's there, but I don't always want to interact with it, certainly.
Yeah,
for sure. I oddly wish that weapons were more destructible, were destroyed faster.
What?
I have a bunch of weapons I like for a bunch of different situations, and they keep not breaking. And and when I get a new one from a chest, I just have to throw one away prematurely.
I am chucking.
I just
don't
get enough
away.
fights, but maybe that's how I'm playing.
I think you're right. Yeah, I am also overflowing on weapons, but maybe it is a reminder of like, yeah, steer towards some folks. Go ahead and attack some bokoblins more
and
often.
And throw them more, maybe.
Just chuck them at everybody you see. Yeah. Let's see. We got God's Garage saying, hey folks, I'm a music teacher, so I wanted to write in with some musical insight. I adore the choices made in the game for the soundtrack, specifically with the instruments they chose to include. That really cool sounding stringed instrument we all heard in the trailer and shows up throughout the soundtrack is called an erhu. It's a traditional Chinese instrument with 2 strings and played like a bow, like a cello. It contrasts really well with some of the synthesized elements of the soundtrack, like that weird bassy choir that sings in the shrines. I'm still missing that saxophone though. Yeah, the sax was in the trailer. I don't know if I've heard the sax in the game yet, but I would love more music experts to write in, please. Crease the Guy says, I absolutely love the creepy shrine music. You were the person I was looking for earlier. There we go. And Ty Mick also loves Zelda. I'm sorry, Link. His name's Link. Humming the music when he cooks and all that stuff. Evan One Sonic has a question that we haven't really hit too much, saying, what do you think is up with Zelda? What's going on here? What is happening?
That's something I'm conflicted on, because at the end of the Wind Temple, you get a great clue, and after the first glyph, you get a great clue. So
okay,
we pretty much know what's going on, and I don't know if I want to spoil it for you two.
Okay, that's fine. I guess we can live without that. We'll get into more.
We will get to it for sure.
We will get to it.
She has certainly been blinking around, and then she took the Master Sword and was like, "Is she fixing my Master Sword?" And then it's like, no, she just stole it.
Yeah,
she just took it. And blinked right off.
She feels like Sephiroth right now, which I like, but I have yet to hit these moments of revealing more. Let's see. Mason Cowell says, maybe I shouldn't have played Breath of the Wild for the last 2 weeks leading up to this, but the slight pause that this game does after you select a weapon is driving me absolutely nuts. There was no pause in Breath of the Wild. Why would they put one in now? Is there a tech reason? Is it a creative choice? I wonder, just to give you more time to prepare for making that change and less just throwing you into the chaos of combat. But now I'm going to really pay attention to this. I'm really curious what you're talking about, Mason. Let's see. Harrison Holt McHale. I just heard your name on an Easy Allies podcast. Harrison. Harrison says, after reading the positivity from Digital Foundry about the performance being good, considering what the game is, I found myself surprised when I started to do some minor Ultra Hand stuff on the starting Sky Islands, and the game began to chug a little here and there. 18 hours later and deep into the northwest part of the map, I'm with Digital Foundry. This game is so damn ambitious. The performance that it is able to achieve is incredible. Congratulations to every single person that worked on this game. It's a masterpiece of technical accomplishment. Jesse L says...
It is weird. I also noticed that chugging, but it's only on that first Sky Island. I was prepared to talk about it. I was like, yeah, I think the performance does take a hit, but it has not happened since I was ultra handing on the first island.
I've seen it a couple spots. Maybe there's been 4 or 5 moments of okay, I'm not a big frame rate guy, but it's I can see this chugging just a little bit, but it's never distracting. Jesse L says, for all the concerns about performance, the game runs and looks great. It's a refreshing experience in this age of poorly optimized games at launch. Plus, it's so fun that I don't care about any technical hiccups. Yeah, I do think it's one of those things for a Switch game, it looks good. There's still, I feel like I'm never annoyed by how this game looks or technically in a big way, but the entire time I'm thinking of, or playing it, I'm thinking about that idea of inevitably when Nintendo remasters Breath of the Wild, 10 years from now or whatever, and you get a version of this that runs at 60 and all the textures are high res and all this stuff, like everyone's going to eat their words and deeds for trying to defend how this game looks. You know, like I think the art style goes a long way, but I think this Breath of the Wild is just like, you get so sucked in that you don't notice it. But if you go with a more analytical point of view, it's easiest to be like, texture sucks. That looks like butt. That looks rough. Draw distance. Pop in here. You know, it is there, but it's, I don't know.
I don't think it looks fully rough, but I do think it goes unsaid that this is the only art style that this game could be. Mm-hmm. Like they couldn't make it a fraction more realistic on the Switch. It has to be really simple colors.
Yeah, they could go the other direction and go full Wind Waker, I suppose. Be curious to see what that would look like.
It is interesting how it's a middle ground in this iteration.
Adam Wagner writes in and says, love the lighting throughout the day and night cycle in Hyrule and all the mist. It evokes a charged with potential type of tone, like how I feel on my birthday. That's right, Adam. Yeah, I do. I look forward to the night, not only just because like, well, I can see those shrines a lot easier when I'm flying around and like that little bit of a glow makes them a little bit more fun to find. But I hear that, man. I hear that. Blazing Scourge says, I think what's amazing about Tears of the Kingdom and both open Zeldas in general is how inviting it is to actually explore the world without feeling overwhelmed. Oftentimes when playing a large open world game, I tend to have a hard time finding where to go and either beeline to the main objective or turn away from the game overall. Nintendo gives the overworld such a strong visual language. I know what I can do at all times at any given high point. With the addition of the new Ultra Hand mechanic, they peppered the world with even more of that ingenuity, where now when I see Zonai parts lying around, I know a really cool challenge or location is nearby, waiting for me to craft my way there. Hang on, before anybody reacts to that, yeah, this is 712 characters long, and we only accept comments that are under 600 characters. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to delete Blazing Scourge.
Should have wrote Skylands.
I think that's about it, everybody. Oh, I'm sorry. We Go Giant submitted a comment on Patreon and says, so a speedrunner named Gymnast86 who runs a bunch of Zelda games beat Tears of the Kingdom in less than 1 hour and 35 minutes right now. The leaderboards don't even open for submissions until May 26th. No details to avoid spoilers, but for reference, at 1 hour and 36 minutes, Hansen and Ronnie were arguing about a Pokemon looking like a Gundam and hadn't gotten to the second shrine yet. Yeah, all right. Good to know.
You got some work to do, Hansen.
You are one of the world's foremost slow runners.
Hey, thanks, man. That's it for community comments over there on Patreon. Thank you to everybody who has supported the Game Club format to unlock the podcast version of this discussion, all of our future discussions about Tears of the Kingdom, the 27, how many deepest dives have we done? Something like that. Long archive of all the previous deepest dives, which are also available in that bonus podcast feed. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to support this entire institution by talking way too much about big games out there, retro games, new games, remasters, all that fun stuff. So please help support this. You get something out of it by getting this type of discussion in your favorite podcast app, and then you can help support this format moving forward as well. Jeffem, how you feeling, man?
Feeling good. I'm enjoying the game much more. I'm enjoying it as much as I hoped I would enjoy this one. And I feel like all the goofiness of it, the physics of it, some of the abilities that just kind of, not only are they fun to play with, but they alleviate some of the stress points that I had previously, gripes that it's been mostly just a lot of fun. I also think like I have gone into it knowing what my problems are, and I've been able to prepare more. Like on that first Sky Island, as soon as I saw there was winter coming, it's like I'm cooking 9 pepper meals, and I'm just gonna be chugging those down. I had a better. I still got struck by lightning.
Oh yeah.
I could not figure out what metal was on me. I was like, I kept it going immediately in. I'm like, get rid of that, get rid of this. Like what is still charging me up here?
What was it?
And then it must have been a shield or something. I don't know. I got blasted, off of the planet. So, but it's been so few of those moments that it was like, that was an easy one to laugh at. And it's just been a lot more like fun, goofy, figure stuff out in my own way that I didn't feel I had in the first game. So
yeah, I'm fascinated by that perspective because I think you got too much crap for like, this guy hates Breath of the Wild, but I feel like you were just, you like that game, but still in Breath of the Wild, you're like, everyone needs to cool it. And we talked about a little bit at the opening of this discussion. It seems like just the hype was getting to you in a big way. And so, like, did you worry that this game wouldn't do it for you and you'd be the outcast of the internet again here?
It like that was certainly a possibility in my mind, but I was hopeful, like, if I can just play with goofy physics stuff the entire time, then I felt I was gonna be okay. And it worked out. So
nice.
So far so good.
Love it. Leo, feeling good?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's better than I hoped. It's really, really cool. And it's so awesome being a part of this cultural moment where we're all grappling with it and figuring it out.
Yeah.
It was kind of sad for me to miss out on Elden Ring last year.
Right.
And I feel like I'm getting to have that experience, and I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so fun just to, I'm sure there's going to be 1,000 comments on YouTube of like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I haven't thought about that just for this video alone. And I'm looking forward to streaming this game soon on our Twitch channel and having people again weigh in like, you idiot, why aren't you doing this? Hopefully they're more polite than that, but there's still just a whole world that I haven't even peeked into yet of what other freaks are doing.
Yeah, I feel like I was taking notes as I was playing, and I feel like I should have been taking notes during this discussion because there was so much that came up of like, wow, I didn't know that was a thing. I got to look for hands, apparently. There are hands out there.
Oh, they'll find you, buddy. They'll find you.
It's the same as I feel about with Hitman is like you could read a list of every single thing you can do in Tears of the Kingdom and it just wouldn't stick because it's too many things with too much variety. But you will naturally pick them up like one at a time from hearing a funny anecdote or seeing a clip or whatever. And that's just because there's so much meat to it that you can't possibly ruin it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, we'll be back next week, everybody, to cover the northeast-ish part of the map, as we explained. But you heard this discussion again. You get what's going on, so you can help support it. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. If you jump in at the $5 tier, you unlock the podcast feed. $2 tier, you can jump in the Discord, which is popping off, as they say. But also that's where you can submit a comment for us to read during the next episode of the show. Phil, as we like to say here at MinnMax, fill our holes, everybody. Figure out what gaps we had in this conversation and just plug something smart right in there. We'll take it. But hey, that's it for the deepest dive. Leo, you want to do that standard sign off, dude?
Be good, have fun, fill our holes.
Bye, everybody. You can help support independent games media by subscribing to MinnMax on YouTube here, or you can support us over on Patreon to unlock a weekly Patreon-exclusive podcast called Party Chat. You can call into our podcast. You can put a picture of your choice on every MinnMax video. MinnMax is a Patreon about games, friends, and getting better, and we exist because of you. Any help telling a friend's appreciated.